Chapter 310. He can project true qi outside his body. He is a grandmaster. Someone exclaimed in horror. Director Li was so scared that he started to tremble. He gritted his teeth in anger. Why is the Guo family so unruly? How dare you offend a grandmaster? More police officers also realized how terrifying Jiang Tian was, and they all held up their shields and kept retreating. Those who offend me will be killed without mercy. The Guo family went back on their word and lied to me. Today, I will destroy the Guo family. Everyone who remains in the Guo family will be killed by me. Those who are not related to me, get out of my sight. Those who want to live, take off your uniform, throw away your weapon, and spit on me 3 times. Then I will spare your life. Jiang Tian's cold and stern voice echoed throughout the Guo family manor. He was like an emperor commanding the world, and like a demon god intimidating the common people. He was majestic and cold. Jiang Tian had no respect or fear for the Singapore police. Jiang Tian wasn't afraid of the Guo family, who were nothing more than lackeys raised by capitalists. From the beginning to the end, they had inverted black and white, helping the evildoers do evil. Run. The police officers did not take Jiang Tian's warning to heart. In their minds, Jiang Tian was the demon god. They only wanted to run for their lives. How could they be in the mood to protect the Guo family? They were not paid by the Guo family. However, before the police officers could get out of the manor, a black blade aura pierced through their chests and they fell to the ground. Didn't you hear what I said? Jiang Tian smiled. The rest of the police officers who wanted to continue to escape suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. They were scared out of their wits and stopped in their tracks. A few of the smarter police officers remembered what Jiang Tian had said. They immediately took off their uniforms and threw them on the ground. They spat on the ground and stomped on the ground a few times before they ran out of the manor. Soon, these people realized that those who threw their uniforms on the ground and spat on them were not killed. Instead, they escaped. With an example, the rest of the police officers quickly followed suit. One by one, they took off their clothes and threw them on the ground. Some of the Singapore police officers even cursed at Jiang Tian, saying things like, the Guo family is a nest of bastards, and the Singapore police are trash. They even peed on their clothes. Many female police officers no longer cared about the actions of the male police officers, nor did they care about their faces. They took off their police uniforms one after another, revealing their snow-white skin. After spitting a few times, they turned around and fled. As for the rich and famous ladies, there was no need to even mention them. They were so scared that they wet their pants, squeaking and fighting to be the first to run to the entrance of the manor. The 7 to 8 meter wide gate was unexpectedly congested and trampled. Some people had no choice but to disregard their image and climb over the fence and through the sewers. A few police officers who wanted to fish in troubled waters could not escape from Jiang Tian's divine sense. They were instantly beheaded by Jiang Tian. However, the Guo family was still the Guo family. They had a few dozen elite bodyguards, including a few iron-body internal force martial artists and Dao-reaching level spellcasters. Even though Jiang Tian had displayed such frightening strength, they were still loyal to their master and charged at Jiang Tian. But in front of Jiang Tian, they could not even last a single exchange, and were killed by Jiang Tian with a raise of his hand. Jiang Tian bathed the streets in blood. Those who resisted were immediately killed. He also cast fireball talismans, causing billowing black smoke to rise from the villas. The originally joyous birthday banquet immediately turned into hell. It was a mess and chaos. Screams and cries could be heard everywhere. Stop, Kong Teichu, you have gone too far. You should know when to stop. You have killed so many people. Do you want to become the enemy of the entire Singapore? When Jiang Tian's flying sword swept up streams of blood, and killed all the way to the main building of the villas and pounced toward Guoshi High, a tall figure suddenly appeared 20 meters away from Jiang Tian, blocking in front of Jiang Tian like a ghost. Hee, do you really think you can stop me with your initial transcendent state cultivation? Since you know that I am Kong Teichu, why don't you get the hell out of here? Jiang Tian held the blood-stained flying sword in his hand and sneered at Wang Zhibua. He had killed Lin Zhenyu, who was at the peak of the transcendent state, and Hong Tianzhao and Mo Haoxiong, who were at the phenomenal stage of the transcendent state, were killed with a snap of his fingers. Therefore Wang Zhibua, who had just reached the initial stage of the transcendent state, was nothing in his eyes. My name is Wang Zhibua. My great-grandfather is Wang Chongyan, the president of the Chinese Association of Singapore. Once he gives the order, all the martial artists and Dharma spell masters from Southeast Asia will be here. No matter how powerful you are, you will not be able to walk out of Singapore alive, Wang Zhibua said with a cold smirk. Buzz. Jiang Tian flicked his finger on Xiao Hei's flying sword, and a strong battle intent rose from his body. He laughed disdainfully and said, Hee Wang Zhibua, I came to Singapore to kill Wang Chongyan. You came at the right time. Since you are here, I will kill you first and provoke Wang Chongyan to come out. Very well, Kong Teichu, you are so arrogant. I would like to see how powerful you are today. Wang Zhibua snorted and waved his hands in the air. Suddenly, clouds of green qi appeared in his palms. At that moment, Jiang Tian's divine sense noticed that the trees, flowers, and plants in the manor were withering and dying. The wood element qi had been absorbed by him. Yi-wood qi weapon, 1,000 arrows piercing the heart. Under Wang Zhibua's control, the green Yi-wood aura within a radius of 5 to 6 miles gushed over endlessly. The Yi-wood aura in his hands turned into numerous arrows that shot toward Jiang Tian. If there were any Dharma spell masters around, they would have been shocked. Wang Zhibua was also a rare Dharma spell master. His Yi-wood qi was a Dharma spell master, and the 1,000 arrows piercing the heart was a Dharma spell master. It was also because of this that he was able to trigger the wood element aura that was 10 times stronger than his own strength, allowing him to kill those of a higher level. At this moment, even if Lin Zhenyu and Hong Tianjiao were to come back to life, they would have to be cautious when facing this move. 1,000 arrows piercing the heart. Wang Zhibua is serious. Someone from the Guo family exclaimed in the villa. This arrogant kid from the mainland is dead meat. Seeing this, Guo Junfeng was overjoyed. His eyes were filled with anticipation and excitement. Sigh, we finally have someone to rely on now that we are married to the Wang family. Guo Shihai was also excited. After today's incident, he realized the importance of Dharma spell masters and martial arts. He swore to himself that he would get along well with the Wang family in the future. He would not ask for a single betrothal gift for this marriage. He would also give them 1 billion or so worth of shares. Is this my future husband? He is so powerful. Seeing this shocking scene, Guilili was also overjoyed. It was as if she had found a treasure. Not bad. The Wang family's Dharma spell masters are indeed unique. They are even more advanced than the Lingnan spell masters. Your overall strength is even comparable to Wei Shuofeng's. Seeing this, Jiang Tian's heart skipped a beat. He nodded slightly. Wei Shuofeng had drawn upon the Tidehark Mountain Qi with the help of the profound yellow clay jar. Moreover, his training hall was on Tidehark Mountain, and had been operating day and night for decades. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to draw upon the Qi. His Dharma spell masters weren't as proficient as Wang Zhibua. It could be said that in terms of Dharma spell masters, Wei Shuofeng was slightly inferior to Wang Zhibua. What a pity that you ran into me today. Go to hell. Jiang Tian sneered inwardly. With a swoosh, Xiao Hei's flying sword broke through the sound barrier and tore through the air. Fast. Fast as lightning. Extremely fast. The most terrifying thing about Xiao Hei's flying sword was its incredible speed. It was more than 10 times faster than myriad piercing arrows. Myriad piercing arrows was only halfway to Jiang Tian, and 10 meters away from Jiang Tian, but Xiao Hei's flying sword had already arrived in front of Wang Zhibua. How is this possible? Wang Zhibua was horrified. His expression changed as he screamed inwardly. As he retreated, he waved his hands and formed a hand seal. In the blink of an eye, a small green shield formed in front of him to block Xiao Hei's flying sword. However, Xiao Hei's flying sword was extremely powerful. It was a peerless divine weapon from the ruins of immortality. It could even kill a peerless demon immortal like Qi Aosheng. Wang Zhibua only knew a few basic spells. How could he resist it? Swoosh. With an ear-piercing noise, the small green shield was easily penetrated by Xiao Hei's flying sword, and Xiao Hei's flying sword stabbed heavily into his chest. At this moment, a protective jade pendant at his waist flashed and formed a golden shield to protect him. But Xiao Hei's flying sword was too powerful. Even the protective jade pendant that Wang Chongyan had personally refined was too weak. There was only a rumble. With a loud boom, like a grenade exploding, the shield shattered. Wang Zhibua spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying like a dead dog. He fell to the ground and couldn't get up. At this moment, he didn't look handsome at all. His chest was shattered and his body was covered in blood. His face was covered in dust and his hair was dry and yellow. He looked like a beggar. And this was because his family's protective jade pendant had blocked part of the sword chi. Otherwise, he would have been pierced through and shattered into pieces. How about it? Do you think you, Wang Zhibua, or the Wang family and the Chinese of Singapore have the strength to challenge me? Under the horrified gaze of everyone, Jiang Tian walked over lazily with his hands behind his back and laughed mockingly. My great-grandfather is Wang Chongyan. At this time, Wang Zhibua was seriously injured and blood kept coming out of his mouth. He didn't even have the strength to move a finger. No one knew if this sentence was a threat or a plea for mercy. I know you said it before. But so what? Jiang Tian was too lazy to figure out what he meant. He raised his hand and flicked his finger. Ah! Wang Zhibua screamed as a bloody hole appeared in his forehead. His eyes were still wide open. It seemed that until the moment of his death, he still couldn't believe that Jiang Tian dared to kill him. Wang Zhibua is dead? In fact, Guo Shihai, Guo Junfeng, and the other Guo family members, as well as the guests who had yet to leave the hall, were all dumbfounded. Wang Zhibua was Wang Chongyan's great-grandson, and he had inherited his legacy. His name was well known throughout Southeast Asia, but he was killed by Jiang Tian with a flick of his finger. Moreover, Jiang Tian did it as if he was casually squashing an ant. Hubby! Guo Lily shed tears. Her heart was filled with grief. Who the hell is he? How can he be so powerful? Guo Shihai came to his senses and his face was pale. He panicked and couldn't stay calm anymore. He was on good terms with Wang Chongyan and knew many martial arts experts. However, what he saw today was still the most unbelievable thing in his life. Jiang Tian had sent the explosion-proof armored vehicle flying with a stomp of his foot and killed 3 helicopters with a snap of his fingers. Hundreds of fully armed Singapore police officers had been beaten to a pulp. He was truly like a deity. Chapter 311. Guo Lily had never figured out Jiang Tian's identity, so she was speechless. The sorcerer from Wuxia couldn't hold back anymore. He rushed forward and bowed. Old family head, this man is Kong Taichu, the #1 martial arts grandmaster on Wuxia's divine roll. He once killed Lin Zhenyu from the Great Circle. What? He is Kong Taichu? Even someone as powerful as Lin Zhenyu was killed by him. Sigh, we should have stopped Child Wang. We can only wait for old immortal Wang to take him down. As soon as he said that, many members of the Singapore Chinese Society, who were attending the engagement ceremony, recognized Jiang Tian. They were even more shocked and scared out of their wits. Jiang Taichu, what is his background? They knew of Jiang Tian, but Guo Shihai didn't. He asked in fear. After all, he was just a rich man in the secular world. He was still far from the martial arts grandmaster. After the few of them explained the situation to him, Guo Shihai was so shocked that his body swayed a few times. He pointed at Guo Junfeng and Guo Lily and scolded. Are you too stupid? How could you not understand such a strong expert? How could you provoke him? Father, what should we do? Grandpa, I know I was wrong. Guo Junfeng and Guo Lily knew that they had made a big mistake and were panicking. Fine, fine. We can only bow our heads and admit defeat in front of such a powerful man. Guo Shihai pondered for a moment, and then let out a long sigh. He shook his head and sighed. Since he is here for money, we will fulfill his wish. As he spoke, he quickly walked out, cupped his fists and said loudly, Grandmaster Jiang, please stop. This old man's eyesight was not good enough to recognize the real person's face, and brought a disaster to the Guo family. This old man only has himself to blame. Jiang Tian smiled coldly and said, Haha, is that all? I have no interest in listening to your nonsense. Master Kong, I'll pay you 10 billion immediately, plus 10 billion in interest. Guo Shihai smiled bitterly, bowed and begged. Seeing that we are all descendants of Yan Huang, Please spare our Gua family's lives. Jiang Tian ignored him and turned to look at Guilili, who was trembling behind Gua Shihai. Do you know where Wang Chongyan's training hall is? I know. When I got engaged, I went to visit him once. Guilili didn't dare to meet Jiang Tian's gaze. Her face was pale as she lowered her head and trembled. All right. Jiang Tian nodded. He looked at Gua Shihai again and said, You people from the Gua family always call yourselves bumpkins from the mainland, and forget your ancestors. You have no right to call yourselves descendants of the Yellow Emperor in front of me. It was your Gua clan that bullied me first, and now I'm here to demand it back. Yet, you've turned your weapons against me. This is a grudge of life and death. How can I let you off so easily? It wouldn't even be enough to wipe out your entire clan. Gua Shihai was speechless. His face was filled with bitterness, regret and fear. His body was on the verge of collapsing, as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. Jiang Tian smiled indifferently. But I don't want to kill the innocent. Guilili cheated me of my pills to extend your life. Gua Junfeng once ordered Guilili to lead experts to assassinate me. Today, Gua Changxing framed me. So, I will kill Gua Junfeng and Gua Changxing. Before he finished speaking, Jiang Tian's finger light hit nothing. Gua Junfeng and Gua Changxing's heads exploded like watermelons. Red and white matter splattered everywhere as they fell to the ground. Junfeng. Changxing. Gua Shihai was heartbroken when his son and grandson were killed in front of him. How sad was it to see one's son die before his own? But in his heart, fear was stronger than grief. He was so scared that his body trembled. He didn't even dare to let out a fart. In the end, he only sighed deeply. Gua Shihai, your life was extended by me. Today I will take it too. After Jiang Tian finished speaking, he grabbed Gua Shihai from afar. At this moment, Gua Shihai seemed to have his blood sucked out. His muscles shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye. His eyes turned turbid, and his back quickly bent down. He slowly fell to the ground, unable to say a word. After a few breaths, he closed his eyes and passed away. The Gua family betrayed us and wanted to kill me to renege on the debt. The Gua family's assets will all belong to me. Do you accept this? Jiang Tian glanced at the Gua family indifferently and asked coldly. No matter how angry or sad the Gua family was, they still didn't dare to disobey Jiang Tian's monstrous power. If they dared to say no, Jiang Tian would probably wipe out their entire family. Jiang Tian was clearly more than 10 meters away from Gua Junfeng and Gua Changxing, but he killed them with a raise of his hand. He could even deprive people of their life force. This ability was too terrifying. He was like a god. We have no objections to Mr. Zhang's actions. Deputy Director Li was the first to nod in agreement. The other high-ranking officials and rich people also agreed. Even the spell masters didn't dare to say anything. They were completely stunned by Jiang Tian's monstrous power. You guys prepare the contract. I'll kill Wang Chongyan first, then I'll come back to collect the assets. After saying that, Jiang Tian grabbed the terrified Guilili like an eagle grabbing a chick. He stepped onto the flying sword and flew away. Gua Shihai, Gua Junfeng and Gua Changxing were killed by him? Yang Wenluan and Li Xinyue watched the whole thing from outside, as if they were watching a Hollywood movie. Is that Jiang Tian? He can fly. They didn't dare to enter until the killing sounds inside were about to stop. Then they rushed in and saw the shocking scene. They were so shocked that they almost fell to the ground. Hee, so the real International Spell Master Conference is held on Swirling Island. No wonder I couldn't find Wang Chongyan's whereabouts even after searching the entire Singapore. Jiang Tian carried Guilili on his flying sword and flew towards a small island in the South Pacific Ocean about 100 kilometers away from Singapore. Guilili said that Wang Chongyan's retreat was not in Singapore. It was on a small island about 100 kilometers south of the Strait of Malacca. Moreover, the International Spell Master Conference was being held there. Not only was Wang Chongyan's retreat here, but there were also many Southeast Asian spell masters' retreat. It was like the headquarters of the Chinese society in Singapore. Moreover, there were many spell masters gathered here. Most of them were on good terms with Wang Chongyan. That made the conference even more powerful. Guilili's words were more or less meant to intimidate Jiang Tian. She wanted him to back off in the face of difficulties and spare her. As long as the Chinese society in Singapore was still there, she and the Guo family still had a chance to survive. Unexpectedly, Jiang Tian laughed and said, "Haha, that's great. I'll take care of all of you." Guo Lily was so angry that she almost fainted. She gritted her teeth and hated Jiang Tian to the core. She thought that Jiang Tian was too cruel and too arrogant. However, when she looked at Jiang Tian's flying sword and his ability to break the sound barrier, she felt uneasy again. Ever since she knew about Wang Chongyan's abilities, she had been very confident in the Chinese society in Singapore. However, she was uneasy now. She was not so sure anymore. A terrifying thought appeared in her mind. Maybe Jiang Tian can really wipe out the Chinese society in Singapore. Jiang Tian was too fast. He didn't give the Singaporean officials any time to react. In less than 10 minutes, he reached the sky above Swirling Island. In fact, even if they did react, it would be useless. With Guo Lily in Jiang Tian's hands, they wouldn't be able to use any firearms. Swirling Island was not big. It was about 5 to 6 kilometers in radius. However, the terrain was very complicated. It was deep in the mountains and steep cliffs. There was only one narrow path that could fit 10 people walking side by side. Looking down from the sky, from the foot of the mountain all the way up, it was densely packed with walled cities. The entire walled city was probably able to house over 1,000 people. There was even a majestic stone wall built to encircle the walled city. The headquarters of the Chinese society in Singapore was on a platform halfway up the mountain. There were a few tall palaces. Jiang Tian's divine sense quickly locked onto the headquarters halfway up the mountain. The mountain gate was tall and majestic. From afar, he could feel a majestic aura. However, when Jiang Tian saw the words on the lintel, he laughed. Other than the words headquarters of the Chinese society in Singapore, there were also the words Blue Cloth Society. It could be seen that even though Wang Zhongyan was 100 years old, he was still unable to live a peaceful life, and did not forget the glory of the Republic of China period. He even dreamed of making a comeback and reshaping the glory of China, becoming the enemy of the martial arts world of Wuxia. Jiang Tian flew to the front of the gate. Immediately, 2 guards in blue walked over and shouted, "Who are you? How dare you trespass into the forbidden area of the Chinese society in Singapore? Do you want to die?" The other guard recognized Guo Lily. He smiled apologetically and said, "Oh, it's Ms. Guo. There's an international spell conference here. Outsiders are not allowed to enter. Please go back." Although the headquarters of the Chinese society in Singapore was hidden, it was too famous. There were still some rich people who came to find out more about it. They wanted to meet the enlightened master who lived here. It seemed like this young man was following Ms. Guo here. Jiang Tian didn't say anything. He summoned his flying sword. With a flash of dark light, the flying sword flew across the sky and slashed at the gate. Kaboom! With a loud bang, as if a cannonball had been fired, the majestic marble door directly shattered. "Wang Chongyan, come out and face your death." Jiang Tianlong's demonic roar spread out in all directions. The rolling sound of thunder was like an angry dragon charging towards the central Great Hall. At this time, many Nanyang sorcerers and martial arts experts had gathered in the central main hall, crowding around an old man in a blue robe who was sitting on a high stone chair on a high platform. Both sides were chatting happily. Some of the Nanyang evil sorcerers were as gloomy as ghosts, some were as hot as the sun, some were as red as blood, and some were as murderous as vipers. Su Majai, who was famous throughout Hong Kong, was sitting in a secluded spot. His face was gloomy and dejected. "I didn't expect the Chinese of Singapore to join forces with the Nanyang witchcraft sect. They are 10 times stronger than before. I'm sure they will be able to suppress us in the future." Su Majai took a sip of wine and shook his head with a bitter taste in his mouth. Chapter 312. The International Dharma Spell Conference was not only about cooperation, but also about the exchange of Dharma artifacts and materials. Spell masters were not people who were detached from worldly affairs. They would also fight for power and profit to determine who was better and who was worse. Naturally, there would be friction between them. Because of the long formation spell master's ranking system, Dharma spell masters were even more aggressive than martial artists. On a certain month, on a certain day, where did I defeat everyone? What a loser. Ha ha ha. Whoever won against a master of sorcery would have to hold a big banquet to show off, so that everyone would know about it. Especially when he challenged his opponent to a spar in such an occasion, and defeated his opponent in front of everyone. It would undoubtedly establish his status and position. It would also be a wonderful thing to hold one's head high in pride. Su Majai was a Dharma spell master of the Talisman Charm sect. He had always been dissatisfied with Zhou Xingqian of Singapore. Therefore he challenged Zhou Xingqian to a duel. However, he was defeated by Zhou Xingqian in a matter of seconds. However, he could tell that Zhou Xingqian had not only used traditional Taoist talismans during the duel, but also used some witchcraft, which made him very unhappy about his failure. Grandpa, isn't the Chinese sect supposed to work with the dark arts masters? The little nun asked in confusion. There were a few dark arts masters from Nanyang who had joined the Chinese sect, such as Oyila. However, they were not considered top-tier Dharma spell masters. Su Majai looked at the tall figures below the stage, and let out a wry smile. However, this time the Blood Shaman sect, the Fire Shaman sect, and the Snake Shaman sect have joined the Chinese sect. Rumor has it that the Dark Shaman sect behind them might also join forces with Wang Chongyan. Fear flashed in his eyes as he heaved a sigh. Most of these sects are from Myanmar and Thailand. They have a lot of ethereal enlightenment-level Dharma spell masters among them. Isn't Wang Chongyan afraid that they would turn the tables on him? The little nun asked with furrowed brows. Wang Chongyan is not an idiot. Of course, he has a way to deal with him. Plus, he has been sparring with the Nanyang Dark Arts Masters for years. He has reached the peak of the transcendent state in martial arts, and the late stage of the ethereal enlightenment in spells. He is as powerful as an immortal state cultivator. Su Majai sighed and said in a low voice. Probably because the Battle of Mount Everest has greatly damaged the Chinese association. He is also very anxious. This time, he has put in a lot of effort. These evil arts masters have all joined as consecrators. Just as everyone was talking and laughing, suddenly, there was a loud rumble. An earth-shattering sound came from the mountain gate. A voice that surged like a raging wave rumbled over. Wang Chongyan, come out and accept your death. For a moment, the entire crowd was shocked. Everyone was stunned and turned their heads to look outside the door. How dare you trespass into our Singapore Chinese Society's headquarters? Do you want to die? However, Wang Chongyan's expression changed abruptly. He slapped the armrest of the chair and stood up. With a single slap, the stone chair instantly collapsed and the armrest shattered. This person is courting death. How dare he be disrespectful to President Wang? Many Nanyang Dark Arts Masters also stood up. Each of them was filled with murderous intent. They wanted to teach this arrogant and ignorant kid a lesson. Is he from Wuxia? His accent sounds like he is from the mainland. He destroyed the mountain gate with one slash. Could he be a martial arts master from Wuxia? At the entrance of the headquarters, the guards were shocked and could not believe that Jiang Tian had destroyed the mountain gate with his sword. No matter who he is, he has to die if he dares to trespass into our Singapore Chinese Society's headquarters. The guards were furious in the next moment. After all, they were all martial arts masters. They were very arrogant people who flaunted their courage and ruthlessness. It would be outrageous if they were scared off by a single person. Kid, how dare you destroy the mountain gate of our Blue Cloth Society? Go to hell. The leader of the guards roared and charged at Jiang Tian. He leaped down like a cheetah, holding a ghost-headed saber in his hand. With a slash, the sharp and dazzling saber light connected into one, overlapping one another. Even a small car could be cut in half. Wang Chongyan's disciple, Song Yuanjian. He has achieved phenomenal success in his internal force cultivation. In Wuxia, he can be called a martial arts master. In the surroundings, the bystanders smiled proudly. Their eyes were filled with confidence, as if Jiang Tian was already dead to the point that he couldn't be any more dead. Don't. Only Guilili shook her head regretfully. She was tongue-tied. She wanted to stop him, but she did not have time. Wang Zhibua was a dual cultivator of Dharma spells and martial arts. He had reached the transcendent level in martial arts and could be called a master. If he was not a match for Jiang Tian, he would only be courting death. Swoosh! Jiang Tian's sword slashed through the air, and the black sword light sliced through the air like a knife cutting through water. It directly cut through the ghost head blade that could cut through hair, and cut Song Yuanjian, whose face was filled with shock, in half. Ah! Waves of blood rolled and Song Yuanjian's body fell to the ground. Blood splattered on the faces of the people around him. However, he did not die immediately. Instead, he let out a heart-wrenching scream that made people's hair stand on end. For a moment, everyone was dumbfounded and could not believe it. This was Wang Chongyan's disciple, a martial arts master. How could he not even be able to withstand one strike from the opponent? Could he really be a transcendent master? How is that possible? Transcendent masters are rare in Wuxia. There are only a few dozen of them in Wuxia. Some people still shook their heads in disbelief. Kill him. How can the Singapore Chinese society be humiliated so easily? Everyone, let's chop him up and feed him to the dogs. Yeah, kill him. However, even more guards leaped up and swarmed over, attacking Jiang Tian one after another. Most of these guards were internal force users who had been taught by Wang Chongyan. There were more than 20 of them, so even if Jiang Tian was a transcendent master, they were not afraid of him at all. More importantly, Wang Chongyan was very strict with his subordinates. Those who were afraid of a fight would be severely punished or even executed. Wang Chongyan had been famous since the Republic of China, much earlier than Lin Zhenyu. He was a veteran transcendent master of the same generation as Yi Tianren. He was a master of both Dharma spells and martial arts. His disciples also had their own strengths and weaknesses. Some of them had a strong physique and chose to engage in close combat. Some of them had powerful internal force users who could pierce through the air to kill. Some of them were hidden weapon experts who could shoot darts and hidden arrows from a distance. Some of them were sword dao and blade dao experts who used swords to attack. More than 20 of them attacked at the same time, and most of them were internal force users. Some of them had even reached initial transcendent state. The attack was so powerful that even powerful overlords such as Hu Qingtian and Lin Zhenyu would have to tread carefully. Hee, let me show you the power of my flying sword. Jiang Tian smiled faintly, and his flying sword flew out with a whoosh. A series of screams and cries filled the air. It sounded like the cries of ghosts and howls of wolves. The flying sword turned into a jet of black light, and it was so agile that it seemed to have a mind of its own. Some of the swords pierced through the guards' chests, some were decapitated, and some were even cut in half at the waist. Their intestines spilled out onto the ground as they died instantly. Jiang Tian had killed 24 guards in a blink. None of them were able to escape. Who are you? How dare you kill the disciples of the Chinese Society of Singapore? Are you tired of living? At this time, a guardian elder shot out from the main hall and stood on top of a tall fake mountain, looking down at Jiang Tian Dao. Guardian Elder Fang Jian is here. Elder Fang is a transcendent state perfected cultivator. 10 years ago, he was on a mission in Lingnan of Wuxia. He defeated Mo Haoxiong with one blow. That's right. Since then, Mo Haoxiong has been in seclusion. He doesn't dare to claim that he is a transcendent state master anymore. Many martial artists think that there is no transcendent state master in Lingnan. Seeing the guardian elder come out, the members of the Singapore Chinese Society felt as if they had received a great support. Their hearts calmed down a lot, and their eyes were filled with anticipation and excitement. It was as if Jiang Tian was going to lose this time. You are not qualified to know my name. Tell Wang Chongyan to come out and face his death. Jiang Tian's eyes were indifferent. He held the sword that was dripping blood and walked toward the palace. He was still talking. It's you. Fan Tian, Wang Chongyan's eldest disciple, also came out of the main hall. When he saw that it was Jiang Tian, he could not help but exclaim in shock. Kid, you are so arrogant. Even Wei Feilong would not dare to talk to me like that. Before Fan Tian could say anything, the exasperated elder Fang Jian had already made his move. Swoosh. Then, he pulled out a soft whip from his waist and lashed it towards Jiang Tian Bao. When this whip swept out, It was simply like an iron curtain that flickered with cold lights as it pressed down on the sky, and it carried along a wave of terrifying whistling sounds. Everywhere the whip passed, violent winds arose, causing sand and rocks to fly into the air. And even enormous rocks that were the size of basketballs rolled on the ground and flew out in all directions. This whip is not bad. Old Ghost's bone whip of the white ape is broken. I will give it to him. Jiang Tian's eyes lit up. He reached out his hand and grabbed the whip. At the same time, he threw out his flying sword. Feng Jian was a phenomenal success transcendent state cultivator, and the whip was infused with powerful true qi. Even when the whip was stationary, it could easily kill an internal force user, let alone during a fight. However, Jiang Tian had caught it. He could not help but be shocked. Before he could snatch it back, his vision turned dark as a black light pierced through his chest. This black light was too fast, like a black lightning bolt. He didn't even see what it was. Feng Jian let out a loud roar. His body bent backward from his knees and leaned back to the limit. His head was almost touching the ground. He thought that his speed was fast enough, and that he would definitely be able to dodge the black light. Suddenly, he felt a chill in his chest and a sense of weakness enveloped his body. He looked down and found that his chest had been pierced by a black sword. Blood was gushing out of it. How is this possible? Feng Jian murmured to himself. He could not believe it. With a swish, Jiang Tian waved his hand, and the black flying sword flew back to his hand. Elder Feng Jian fell to the ground and breathed his last. In the Singapore Chinese society, Feng Jian could be considered a big shot. He was on par with Oyila, but he was killed by Jiang Tian just like that. Who is this man? How could he be so powerful? With Feng Jian's death, the Singapore Chinese Society's hallmasters, elders, and guards all rushed over. None of the experts dared to step forward. Most of them were below the transcendent state. If even Feng Jian was killed, they would be killed by Chen Fan. However, none of them could figure out Jiang Tian's identity. They could not understand why the Chinese Society of Singapore would want to provoke such a powerful man. Chapter 313. Who the hell is this guy? How dare he come to the headquarters of the Chinese Society of Singapore and kill us? Many people were still in a state of shock. In fact, the Chinese Society of Singapore had a history of over half a century, even longer than that of the Great Circle. However, during this long period of development, there were only a few people who dared to invade the island during the first 10 years of its construction. However, they were all annihilated by the Chinese Club of Singapore. In the following half a century, no one dared to invade the island. He is Kong Techu. Lord Brahma's face paled as he finally said, "What? He is Kong Techu." Everyone's face paled as soon as they heard Lord Brahma's words. Many of them took a step back. It could be said that in Southeast Asia, Jiang Taichu's name was too resounding among the powerhouses, even if the secular world was unaware of it. On the peak of Mount Everest, he had killed Oyila, Master Qing Lian, Blackwing Batu and many other powerful cultivators. Rumor had it that he had killed Lin Zhenyu at Poyang Lake in Wuxia, and was recognized as the most powerful transcendent grandmaster in Wuxia by the Long Formation Group. What was even more surprising was that Jiang Tian had taken the initiative to attack the Chinese Society of Singapore. Many of the Chinese Society of Singapore had been killed by him on Mount Everest. We haven't even looked for you yet, and you are already here. Is there any justice in this world? What a surprise! Too domineering, too arrogant, too savage. Today, everyone who belongs to the Chinese Society of Singapore will die. Jiang Tian linked his hands behind his back and said lightly, "If you want to live, take off your blue shirt and kneel before me." How dare you? Do you really think you can do whatever you want in Southeast Asia? Wang Chongyan looked at Jiang Tian and didn't say a word. Suddenly, a tall, barefoot old man with shoulder-length red hair and fiery tattoos all over his body made a move. Kaboom! A 3-meter-long giant hand formed from red flames came crashing down on Jiang Tian's head. The flames were extremely hot, and there was poisonous gas lingering within. Not to mention being hit by it, one would not even be able to withstand a single breath. Even an inner force expert would die on the spot. It was the fire shaman cult sect master, Hu Chongtian. What he used was not martial arts, and what he used was not vital energy. Instead, he used sorcery to control the fire element and condense the flames. However, this attack was at least comparable to Lin Jianyu's magma fire poison. An ordinary martial arts grandmaster would be burned to death. The little black flying sword in Jiang Tian's hand slashed through the air. It grew bigger against the wind and instantly chopped the huge flaming palm into pieces. Flames shot out in all directions. The members of the Chinese society in Singapore were caught in the crossfire. They couldn't dodge in time and screamed in agony as they were burned to ashes. Flying sword, it's a flying sword. Is this the legendary flying sword? Or is it just using qi to control the sword? If it's really a flying sword, then he's a human immortal. This flying sword can expand. How can it not be a flying sword? Everyone cried out in alarm. Even Wang Chongyan's expression changed. Hua Chongtian was even more frightened and regretful. Flying sword. Legend had it that only a sword immortal could wield such power. Could it be that Jiang Tian was a sword immortal as well? If Jiang Tian was really a sword immortal, then the gap between their strength and Jiang Tian's was just too big. It was said that regardless of martial arts or sorcery, one could become an immortal after cultivating to the extreme. Immortals were divided into 3 levels: human immortal, earth immortal, and sky immortal. Sword immortals were experts who specialized in the art of swordsmanship. However, no matter what kind of immortal they were all beyond their reach. Fine, if you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Jiang Tian raised his hand and shot out a ray of light. It pierced through Hua Chongtian's forehead. He screamed and fell to the ground. So powerful. Many of the shaman cult sect masters were terrified. No wonder this person was able to dominate the Everest peak. He was so powerful that even Hua Chongtian, who was of ethereal enlightenment, was no match for him. Wang Chongyan, come and die. Jiang Tian glared at Wang Chongyan and said coldly, Kong Teichu, the Chinese Society of Singapore has tens of thousands of members and followers. We have many ethereal enlightenment spell masters and transcendent state martial arts grandmasters. Do you really want to make us your enemy? Wang Zhongyan was flustered and exasperated as he scolded. Furthermore, this old man is the imperial advisor of Singapore. Even the president is my believer and has to address me as master. Now that you have offended me, the Singapore government and army will not let you off. I have already killed your grandson, Wang Zhibua. Jiang Tian said calmly. He wanted to force Wang Chongyan to kill him. You. Wang Chongyan was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Wang Zhibua was the great-grandson he doted on the most, and now that he had been killed by Jiang Tian, he had to bear the sorrow of a white-haired person sending off his own black hair. This was truly an uncontrollable rage. Everyone thought that Wang Chongyan was going to kill Chen Fan. However, to everyone's surprise, he suppressed his anger and heaved a sigh. He shook his head and said with a wry smile, Kong Teichu, don't push me too far. I didn't know that you were going to steal the new flower during the battle on the Everest peak. Otherwise, I wouldn't. He had already decided to back down. In his opinion, Jiang Tian was a peak-level transcendent state grandmaster, and had killed a peak-level transcendent state grandmaster. Therefore, he wasn't confident that he could defeat Jiang Tian. I'm pushing you too far? I won't settle the score with you during the battle on the Everest peak. However, didn't you know that Ba Song and Meng Kong of the Kuantian Chinese Society tried to assassinate me? Jiang Tian sneered and said, The grudge has already been formed. I want to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. To be honest, I am worried about you and the Chinese Society of Singapore. Who knows when you will go crazy and try to assassinate me again. Master Kong, I Wang Chongyan, am a man of my words. If you withdraw from the headquarters of the Chinese Society of Singapore today, I will let bygones be bygones. Wang Chongyan said solemnly. Jiang Tian shook his head and said with a lazy smile, If you want me to believe you, it's very simple. Show me your sincerity, obediently kneel down, admit defeat, and call me your father, and I'll let you go. You want President Wang to kneel down and admit defeat? That's too arrogant. Everyone was shocked and couldn't believe what they heard. Grandmasters were like dragons. Which one of them wasn't full of arrogance? They had seen a lot of arrogant grandmasters, but it was their first time seeing someone as arrogant as Jiang Tian. Wang Chongyan was an expert. He had reached the transcendent state during the Republic of China and became a grandmaster. He led the Blue Coat Society and was on equal footing with Huang Jinrong and Du Yuesheng on the Bund. Today, he was the Grand Preceptor of Singapore and the Grand Preceptor of Singapore. He was also known as the Grand Preceptor of Singapore. But today, Jiang Tian actually wanted him to kneel and admit defeat and call him father or ancestor. This was simply too inconceivable. Wang Chongyan was enraged by Chen Fan's words. His face turned pale, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He shouted coldly, "Kong Teichu, I didn't want to fight you because you are a martial arts prodigy. You are also a descendant of the Yanhuang dynasty. That's why I didn't want to fight with you. Instead, I called you Master Kong. If I don't respect you, you are nothing." The old man became a transcendent grandmaster in the 30s of the last century. He was famous in Wuxia and was on par with Yi Tianren. Moreover, the old man had been cultivating diligently for the past few decades. He had fused Wuxia martial arts and Dharma spells together, and had reached the immortal state. Even if Yi Zhantian or Lin Zhenyu were to come back to life, they would still have to show respect to me. You have only been famous for a few days. Who do you think you are? How dare you ask me to kneel down and beg for mercy? You talk too much. If you don't kneel down and admit defeat, then let's fight. Jiang Tian flicked the little black flying blade in his hand as his battle-intent soared to the sky. Very well. Today, I will show you the true power of Wuxia martial arts and the Dharma spells of Southeast Asia. Wang Chongyan's eyes flashed with murderous intent as he gritted his teeth. What's so great about the Dharma spells of Southeast Asia? I can kill Oyila with a slap of my hand. Wuxia martial arts? Hee, let alone Yi Tianren. I can kill Yi Zhantian with a snap of my fingers. Jiang Tian let out a disdainful smile and said, "It seems that old Mr. Wang is very confident. Then let's cut the crap and fight." Very well, you are really arrogant. Today, I will kill you as a sacrifice to my poor great-grandson and the souls of the Chinese Society of Singapore that you have killed. Wang Chongyan's murderous intent soared as new and old hatred surged into his heart. A powerful aura spread out in all directions. The aura was so cold and murderous that it caused the temperature within a few dozen meters to plummet. This place was originally a tropical climate, but in a blink of an eye, it was as if they had entered an extremely cold place with howling winds and falling snow. Come to me. Wang Chongyan waved his hand, and a charred wooden zither flew out from the side and landed in his hand. He stomped his feet on the ground and shot out like a bolt of lightning. He stood proudly at the top of a large hall in the courtyard, about 50 meters away from Jiang Tian. He put down the charred wooden zither carefully and looked down at Jiang Tian. He sneered. Kong Teichu, are you ready to be killed? The coffin is already prepared. However, it is for you, Jiang Tian said with a proud smile. This can be said to be the most intense battle in Southeast Asia in half a century. The battle was about to break out. Many people retreated as their hearts jumped to their throats. They were fully focused as they stared at the two people on the battlefield. Jiang Tian, you are too arrogant. Even now, you still don't know what is good for you. Jiang Tian, my husband is Wang Chongyan's grandson. If you kill him now, won't Wang Chongyan tear you into pieces? Guo Lily gritted her teeth as she looked at Jiang Tian at the entrance of the mountain. Her eyes were filled with hatred. This Kong Teichu is too arrogant. Not only did he kill the experts of Southeast Asia on Mount Everest, he even dared to behave atrociously in the Chinese Society of Singapore. This time, Wang Chongyan is going to kill him. A master in a blue robe cackled. Beside him was a giant colorful python that was 10 feet long. He was a Gu master from Malaysia and was famous in Southeast Asia. Kong Teichu is indeed powerful. He had killed Lin Zhenyu and is known as the #1 grandmaster on the divine roll in Wuxia. However, it depends on who he is facing. Wang Chongyan has been famous in Southeast Asia for decades. He has mastered both Dharma spells and martial arts. He has even integrated the dark arts of Southeast Asia into his martial arts. Who can defeat him? An overlord with a bamboo basket on his back sneered. He was surrounded by poisonous gas and black mist, exuding a deadly aura. He was a medicine master from Myanmar. Even if Kang Taechu had killed Lin Zhenyu, does he think that he is qualified to fight with Wang Chongyan? He is too naive. Lin Zhenyu is far inferior to Wang Chongyan in terms of seniority. Zhou Xingchen, the talisman master of Singapore, sneered. Chapter 314. He had also reached the peak of the ethereal enlightenment stage, and could kill a martial arts grandmaster and suppress Su Majai from Hong Kong. However, he was still a far cry from Wang Chongyan. One could only imagine how powerful Wang Chongyan was. Kang Taechu is bound to fall in this battle. This is Wang Chongyan's training ground. One expert after another flew out of the hall, and stood on the various palaces, craning their necks to watch. Most of them thought that Jiang Tian was deader than dead. Grandpa, is he Kang Taechu? How can he be so young and so handsome? The little nun in the apricot robe sized up Jiang Tian curiously. Her childish face was full of admiration and admiration. From the moment he broke through the mountain gate, Jiang Tian had used a spell to change his appearance. At this moment his eyes were like stars, his nose was high, his skin was as white as jade, and his hair was like a waterfall. His white robe was spotless, and he looked like an immortal who had descended to the mortal world. He was very charming. Yes, this is Kang Taechu. Su Majai sighed. There was envy in his eyes. He was young and looked to be in his 20s, but he was qualified to fight with Wang Chongyan. What an honor! Do you think Kang Taechu will win? I heard from the people around that Kang Taechu will lose. The little nun was a little worried because she hoped that Jiang Tian would win. Probably because of their similar age, she naturally felt closer to Jiang Tian. Moreover, Su Majai had been seriously injured by Wei Shuofeng, and had been in seclusion for 10 years. Wei Shuofeng had been killed by Jiang Tian. It could be said that Jiang Tian had indirectly avenged Su Majai. That's not necessarily true. Wang Chongyan is a dual cultivator, and Kang Taechu is also a dual cultivator. Su Majai snorted and rolled his eyes at Zhou Xingchen. Then, he looked up at the two people on the battlefield. Such discussions were heard everywhere in the headquarters of the Chinese Society in Singapore. Everyone held their breaths and clenched their fists as they watched, not wanting to miss a single detail. This battle would decide the fate of the Singapore Chinese Club, and even the fate of the entire Southeast Asia. Everyone had different opinions, but most of them still believed that Jiang Tian had no advantage in terms of cultivation or environment in this battle, and his chances of winning were extremely slim. Kang Taechu, you really are strong. Not only in terms of cultivation, but also in terms of mentality. You have the appearance of being able to swallow the sun and moon, and encompass the world. When Wang Chongyan heard Jiang Tian's words, he did not get angry. Instead he laughed. Immediately after, his smile disappeared and his eyes turned cold. But in this world, strength speaks for itself. You are still far too weak. Before he finished speaking, he threw a punch at Jiang Tian from afar. This punch was simple and unadorned. It was as if an ancient immortal had descended to the mortal world to develop a fist technique. It had a natural charm to it. Rumble. A giant fist the size of a millstone broke through the air and smashed towards Jiang Tian like a cannonball. This punch was so powerful that it could annihilate everything in its path. A large area was filled with howls that sounded like the cries of ghosts and howls of wolves. Sand and pebbles were sent flying, and a terrifying aura swept in all directions. Even the internal force experts could not withstand it, and they all staggered back. This is the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Someone exclaimed. Yeah, Wang Zhongyan used this fist technique to fight with Yi Tianren, even if he couldn't fully develop it. A martial arts grandmaster exclaimed in shock. What is the 6 paths of reincarnation fist? The Taoist nun in an apricot robe asked in surprise. Su Majai was shocked and worried for Jiang Tian. He exclaimed. It really is the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. This fist technique is unpredictable and can evolve into the 6 paths of reincarnation. It is a fist technique that combines both Dharma and martial arts. It is extremely powerful. When the giant fist came at him, Jiang Tian smiled faintly and shot a finger aura at the air. Bam! A loud bang rang out. shaking everyone's eardrums to the point that they were on the verge of collapsing. The entire headquarters shook as if an earthquake had occurred. As far as everyone's eyes could see, the giant fist crumbled. Streams of aura wrapped in stone fragments shot out. Like a heavy artillery bombardment. It directly blasted out a deep crater more than a meter deep, and less than a meter wide on the rocky ground. Shockwaves spread out in all directions. Many Dharma spell masters and martial arts masters were forced to stagger back. Some of the iron body experts felt a sweet taste in their throats as they spat out blood. Ha! Wang Zhongyan's face paled. He had never thought that Jiang Tian would be able to break his mortal realm fist with just a finger aura. This fist was formed by true qi, but it was extremely heavy and powerful. It was not an exaggeration to say that it could destroy an armored vehicle and turn a transcendent grandmaster into a pulp. Kong Teichu was able to break this fist. Both Grandmaster Wang's Qi fist and Kong Teichu's finger aura were extremely powerful. This is a battle between grandmasters. Many of the experts present also had looks of disbelief on their faces as their hearts palpitated in fear. I knew it. Kong Teichu was able to kill Wei Shuofeng and Lin Zhengyu. He is not that simple. Su Majai nodded repeatedly, looking at Jiang Tian with eyes full of admiration and reverence. Jiang Tian looked calm and said disdainfully, Wang Zhongyan, is this all you can do? You are too weak to be a grandmaster in Southeast Asia. Can you show me what you are really capable of? Kong Teichu, if you think this is all I can do, then you are wrong. Wang Zhongyan was enraged. He waved his hands as if he had grasped a mysterious force in the air. Then he pushed out his palms and shouted, 6 paths of reincarnation fist, animal realm. Instantly, light flickered, and strange phenomena appeared. A colorful tiger leaped out from between his fingers. Immediately after, a wolf, a divine eagle, a vulture, a giant shark. They continuously evolved and pounced towards Jiang Tian. In a blink of an eye, the tiger roared in the forest, the eagle soared in the sky, the wolf swallowed the moon, and the fish swam in the shallow water. They stepped on the void and roared in the sky as they attacked Jiang Tian. This is Qi condensation. It is the symbol of the peak of the transcendent state. A martial artist exclaimed. Once a transcendent state martial artist reached the transcendent state, they would be able to condense Qi into weapons and control objects with Qi. However, Qi condensation was a step further. Lions and tigers appeared and attacked the target as if they had a mind of their own. Using Qi to control objects and condensing Qi into weapons was already so difficult, let alone condensing a spiritual beast that could attack on its own. What was even more terrifying was that Wang Zhongyan was able to condense so many Qi condensation at once. I didn't expect Master Wang to be so powerful. He condensed 8 Qi condensation, and is almost half a step away from the immortal state. He's far more powerful than us. Yes, although many of the Qi condensation is still condensed from true Qi, it's almost the same as the immortal state martial artist's verbal obedience. I can die in the evening if I hear the truth in the morning. Today I've seen Master Wang's martial arts. My life is not in vain. Many warriors and sorcerers were shaken and dizzy. Some of them even shed tears of excitement. That's it. Impressive but useless. I'm not looking down on you, but you can't even compare to Lin Jinyu's Kuanpeng's 6 changes. Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully. Swoosh. Xiao Hei's flying sword turned into an earth-shattering black light, and flew out of his hand like a shooting star. Pung, 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 pung. Concentrated sounds rang out incessantly. A single sword pierced through the divine eagle, beheaded the vulture, shattered the giant shark, swept away the vicious wolf, and cleaved the fierce tiger. In an instant, all the Qi condensation collapsed and turned into golden light scattered like sparks, slowly dissipating. According to the discipline of monks, an instant is a thought. 20 thoughts are a moment. 20 moments are a snap of the finger. 20 snaps are a luo of the finger. 20 luo of the finger is a moment. 1 day and 1 night is 30 moments. An instant was the shortest time in the world. It was much shorter than a snap of the finger. To the crowd, it was just a blink of an eye. They didn't even see Xiao Hei's flying sword fly out. They didn't even see Jiang Tian make a move. Many of the Qi condensation phenomena were destroyed. At this moment, There was a dead silence. What's going on? Why did the qi condensation phenomena suddenly disappear? Someone exclaimed in confusion. It seems that Kong Taechu used the flying sword. Someone pinched his chin and pondered for a moment before he spoke with difficulty. His voice was extremely dry. Is this the power of the flying sword? That's too scary. Someone muttered to himself in a daze, not daring to believe it. If this sword were to hit us? A spellmaster who had entered the Dao level was frightened and couldn't bear to say the rest of his words. The speed of the flying sword was too fast. It could break the sound barrier and exceed the limit of what the human eye could see. Any spellmaster's spell was useless because the flying sword would have already beheaded you before your spell could hit him. You wouldn't even have the chance to cast a spell, talisman, or artifact. Wang Chongyan has really met a tough nut this time. Su Majai, on the other hand, sneered and gloated. The Singapore Wuxia officials didn't tolerate the Blue Cloth Society because of their background. It was difficult for them to re-enter the interior of Wuxia, so they liked to operate in Hong Kong and suppress Su Majai. There was constant friction between the two sides. Seeing Wang Chongyan suffer, Su Majai felt as if he had eaten an iced watermelon on a hot day. One word. Awesome. This. Wang Chongyan's heart skipped a beat. A solemn expression once again covered his entire face. Just now, Jiang Tian had used his finger glow to break the giant fist of the Dao level of human realm. The cultivation shown was actually on par with him. The Dao level of animal realm was much stronger than the Dao level of human realm. He thought that it would be easy to kill Jiang Tian with this vision. But he didn't expect Jiang Tian's flying sword to be so powerful that it destroyed many visions in an instant. Dao level of hungry ghost. Wang Chongyan's eyes were about to split open. He roared and used his finger gestures, fist techniques, and talismans. In a flash, a chilly wind blew. Ghosts wailed and wolves howled. Gloomy ghost qi shrouded the surroundings. The ghost qi was as black as ink and extremely viscous as if it was real. It was like balls of rolling black glue. Many evil spirits struggled and screamed in the ghost qi. It was so tragic and hideous that it made one's hair stand on end. The ghost qi was extremely cold and contained extreme poison. Wherever it passed, the ground froze, flowers withered, and green plants withered. Some even turned into ashes and drifted away. If a spellmaster who had entered the Dao level accidentally touched it, he would die. Kill. Immediately afterward, ghost soldiers and ghost generals suddenly condensed from the gloomy ghost qi. Amidst the heaven-shaking battle cries, they charged at Jiang Tian. These ferocious ghosts wore eerie armor, held spears and shields in their hands, and had longbows at their waists. Some of them had their intestines pierced through, dragging their slippery intestines. Some of them were missing limbs, dripping with blood. Some of them were headless, and some of them had rotten faces, revealing their eerie white cheekbones and teeth. A ghost general with a broken arm roared at the sky. It let out a sharp and strange howl that sounded like the wailing of ghosts and wolves. It pierced towards Jiang Tian with its spear. The spear flickered with cold light and shook the void. Immediately, sand and pebbles flew. The surrounding people found it difficult to breathe. A terrifying aura soared into the sky. This is too terrifying. This ghost qi is simply soaring into the sky. The apricot yellow little nun trembled in fear. Her beautiful face turned pale. She staggered back and shrank behind Su Majai. Chapter 315. As the only granddaughter of Su Majai, she came from a well-learned family and had excellent talent. She was able to sense things at the age of 8, and had reached the level of Taoist initiation at the age of 18. She had caught many ghosts and collected many evil spirits in Hong Kong. She was called the Little Witch by many rich and noble ladies and was famous in Hong Kong. However, if she was faced with such a powerful evil spirit, she would have no choice but to run away. That was when her grandpa stepped in. These are all Ghost General and Ghost King level Ghost Soldier spirits. One of them can kill a transcendent Grandmaster, and there are so many of them. Not even a Dharma spellmaster of the ethereal enlightenment level can handle them. Su Majai's heart skipped a beat and his brows knitted. He let out a wry smile and said, "This time Kong Taechu is in danger." "Hehe, you are right. These are all Ghost Kings, and they were all transcendent grandmasters before they died. I collected them from the ancient battlefield in Wuxia years ago. Wang Chongyan continued to cast spells as he looked up to the sky and laughed. His hair and beard fluttered in the wind. Then he looked at Jiang Tian with disdain and murderous eyes and sneered. Jiang Taichu, no matter how great your ability is, you can only be minced into meat paste by these hungry ghosts today, have your blood sucked dry, and be deader than dead. Don't worry, after you die, I will capture your soul and strengthen my Ghost King army. You will die a worthy death. Wang Chongyan, don't you find it shameful to take out such a meager skill to embarrass yourself? Jiang Tian only laughed in disdain towards this, and with a hiss, Xiao Hei's flying sword swept out violently. Bang bang bang. The sound of something shattering could be heard. In a blink of an eye, 8 ghost generals and ghost kings were killed by the flying sword. Their armor, bones, and organs flew everywhere and turned into black smoke. The ghost generals and ghost kings had already gained some spirituality. When Jiang Tian killed 2 ghost kings in a row, the remaining 6 ghost kings and ghost generals fled in all directions. Some even turned into black smoke and tried to escape, but to no avail. For a moment, the ghost generals and ghost kings all let out heart-wrenching screams as if they were demons from hell enduring endless torture. It made people's hair stand on end. What was even more frightening was that the ghost chi was completely absorbed by Xiao Hei's flying sword, leaving not even a drop behind. This flying sword is too powerful. It can even kill the ghost soldiers. Sima Zhai's eyes widened. Could it be that Jiang Tian's flying sword had a ghost-suppressing formation on it? This was a bit too overbearing. What can't you do? Master Kong, you are so powerful. Come on. The Taoist nun in an apricot robe waved her fists in excitement. Is he still human? How can he kill so many ghost soldiers? Some were happy, while others were sad. The faces of the Chinese Society of Singapore were pale, as if they had lost their parents. Jiang Tian had once again refreshed their impression of him. How is this possible? Wang Chongyan's mind trembled violently as he staggered and almost fell down from the main hall. Even if these ghost generals and ghost kings couldn't defeat Jiang Tian, they could at least turn into ghost chi and escape. But now, he didn't know that Jiang Tian's little black flying sword had a demon-suppressing array. Not only could these ghost soldiers not kill Jiang Tian, but they would also become nourishment for the little black flying sword. After the little black flying sword swallowed the ghost chi, it seemed that it was still not satisfied. It leaped and danced in front of Jiang Tian, making a buzzing sound. Little black, are you still hungry? How about I give you the blood essence of a peak transcendent state old man? Jiang Tian said with a grin. The little black flying sword buzzed and danced even faster. It seemed that it couldn't wait any longer. Jiang Tian raised his eyebrows, and his sinister gaze fell on Wang Chongyan. He coldly smiled and said, Wang Chongyan, as the saying goes, it's impolite not to reciprocate. You killed 3 of my moves, so it's time for you to eat one of my sword, right? Go. Before Wang Chongyan could react, Jiang Tianyi shouted in a low voice, and Xiao Hei's flying sword shot out. You can't kill me. Wang Chongyan roared at the top of his lungs. The guqin flew up automatically and floated in front of him. His hands plucked the strings crazily. A sonorous sound of the guqin sounded. It was sonorous and powerful, like the sound of a cavalry charging out. Suddenly the void trembled. More than 100 chi swords, chi blades, and chi blades appeared in the void in front of him. Thump! Thump! Wang Chongyan looked like a hedgehog. Thump! 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 All of a sudden, the chi weapons started spinning and rubbing against each other. Like dozens of chi weapon dragons, they chased each other and spun rapidly, forming a chaotic sphere. TSK, your mess isn't even as orderly as Hong Tianzhao's Big Dipper Sword Formation's defense, which is all-encompassing. And you still have the guts to preside over Southeast Asia, and call yourself king in the south? Tui. Jiang Tian was disdainful and gave a very bad evaluation. But Xiao Hei's flying sword had already arrived. Clang clang clang. In the beginning, several chi weapons clashed with Xiao Hei's flying swords, producing explosive sounds. Bang, bang, bang. Muffled sounds were heard again and again, and the sound waves were vibrating. Xiao Hei's flying swords were stabbing at the ball of qi soldiers from all directions. The void was distorted and blurry. Streams of energy shot out from the sphere of energy soldiers like whistling arrows. The surrounding area was in a mess. Tiles were flying everywhere, stone pillars were tilting, walls were crumbling, and houses were collapsing. The Tai Lake rockery in the courtyard was sliced in half. Stones the size of basketballs were scattered all over the ground. Some of them flew up into the air, and some of them were uprooted. Some of them were cut in half, and some of them were uprooted. The ball of qi soldiers was in a state of chaos. People could no longer see Wang Chongyan's body, but they could hear the sound of the zither getting louder and louder. The ball of qi soldiers was also expanding. The terrifying sound of the zither, the sharp flying swords, and the ball of qi soldiers made people's hearts beat faster. Master Wang Chongyan's qi is too powerful. He must have formed a few thousand qi soldiers. This is shocking. This is the power of a peak transcendent grandmaster. Wang Chongyan is a living fossil among the grandmasters. Someone exclaimed. But Wang Chongyan seems to be at a disadvantage. He is only defending. Someone said worriedly. Humph. His flying swords are going to be shattered. How long can he last? This charred wood zither is also a Dharma treasure. Someone comforted himself and was confident that Wang Chongyan would win. Let's make our move while Kong Teichu is busy dealing with Wang Chongyan's army. There were also people who were eager to make a move, wanting to brazenly make a move while Jiang Tian was off guard. At this moment, after a loud sound from the zither, there was silence. Immediately after, the ball of qi exploded with brilliance. Gold, blazing white, multicolored, it soared into the sky and continuously changed. It was as if the sun had exploded with the most intense flare. It was as if Wang Chongyan's protective magical item was continuously activated. Damn it! I got hit. Immediately after, Wang Chongyan let out a painful groan and curses. With a bang, the qi weapon exploded and swept in all directions, piercing a few inner strength experts nearby, and turning them into bloody figures. Then, the ball of qi soldiers disappeared without a trace. The dust settled. Everyone saw the little black flying sword stuck in Wang Chongyan's chest. His body was covered in blood and his breathing was weak. His face was pale as a sheet. A deadly silence fell over the area. Everyone was stunned and couldn't believe their eyes. Kong Teichu, I don't want to admit defeat. If you didn't have the flying sword, you wouldn't be my opponent. Wang Zhongyan spat out a mouthful of blood as he covered his wound, and his eyes stared fixedly at Jiang Tian, as he shouted angrily with a face full of resentment and unwillingness. Who wants you to admit defeat? Anyway, you are going to die soon. If you don't want to admit defeat, come and bite me. Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully. With a command of his divine sense, the flying sword flew out with a spray of blood, and then it coiled around Wang Zhongyan's neck before cutting off his head. The headless body slowly fell to the ground with blood spurting out. Wang Chongyan, the Grand Master of Singapore, the President of the Chinese Society, and a peerless master of both Dharma and martial arts, was dead. From now on, the Chinese Society of Singapore is no more. You will respect me and listen to my orders. If you don't want to admit defeat, come out. Jiang Tian stood with his hands behind his back. The little black flying sword suddenly disappeared from his fingertips. His cold voice spread across the area. I am Su Majai from Hong Kong. I submit. Su Majai was the first to kneel on the ground and kowtow. His granddaughter, who was wearing a Taoist robe, also hurriedly knelt down. You are a martial artist from Wuxia. How can you lead us? One of the elders of the Snake Witch cult seemed a little unconvinced. He lowered his head and rolled his eyes as he muttered under his breath. Die. Jiang Tian sneered. Without another word, he swung the flying sword and decapitated the elder. The headless body fell to the ground. The elder of the Snake Witch sect was also a master of Dharma spells. He could conjure the spirit serpents, and was a force to be reckoned with in Thailand. However, under Jiang Tian's extremely fast flying sword, he did not even have the time to cast a spell. There was no chance to exchange blows at all. Who are you? Oh, you are a talisman user. Do you submit? Jiang Tian looked at Zhou Xingchen. I submit. I am sincerely convinced. Zhou Xingchen was scared out of his wits. He knelt on the ground and begged. I submit. Lord Brahma also knelt on the ground. His face was filled with sorrow and despair, but there was no sign of resentment. In fact, when he learned that Jiang Tian had clashed with the overlords of the Chinese Society of Singapore, he had tried to persuade Wang Chongyan to make peace with Jiang Tian as a sign of respect. However, Wang Chongyan didn't listen to him. Instead, he chose to build the Chinese Society of Singapore with the help of many witch sects, bug masters, and tame headmasters. However, not only did they fail to turn the tables, but they were also defeated by Jiang Tian. From now on, we are willing to serve Grandmaster Jiang, but we will also go through fire and water for you. May Master Kong rule Southeast Asia forever. Many members of the Chinese Society of Singapore and spellcasters from Southeast Asia fell to their knees. They were all trembling in fear, afraid that Jiang Tian would kill them just like how he killed the elder of the Snake Witch sect. Even Wang Chongyan, the most powerful overlord in Southeast Asia, was defeated by Jiang Tian. The remaining martial artists were not even as powerful as him, so they didn't dare to offend him. How can he be so powerful? He even killed Wang Chongyan. That's terrifying. Guilili also knelt on the ground. Her face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and she was filled with regret. It could be said that because of her small greed, Wang Zhongyan had fallen and the Singapore Chinese Association had changed hands. The Guo family had also lost their last pillar of support and had lost everything. For a time, experts were all kneeling inside and outside the courtyard of the main altar, and only Jiang Tian's tall figure remained in the courtyard as he looked down proudly like an immortal. Kong Teichu's name has spread across the world. He has become a world-renowned overlord. He even killed Wang Chongyan. How many people in the world could be a match for Kong Teichu? Looking at Jiang Tian, who was surrounded by many Southeast Asian experts kneeling on the ground, Su Majai sighed inwardly, his eyes filled with shock. January 20th, 2009, the eve of the Lunar New Year. Kong Teichu killed Wang Chongyan, the Grand Preceptor of Singapore and the President of the Chinese Society of Singapore. Kong Teichu's name spread across Southeast Asia. Chapter 316. When the news of Wang Chongyan's death at the hands of Jiang Tian reached Wuxia, the entire Wuxia martial arts community was in an uproar. Great! Kong Teichu's actions have really boosted the prestige of our country. Chao Shixiang slammed the table and stood up after reading the detailed report. He was overjoyed. The Blue Cloth Society was originally a spy organization that was hostile to the new Chinese government. Back then, they had killed many democratic figures for the reactionaries, causing the White Terror. They had committed numerous crimes, and their crimes were too numerous to be recorded. Even though the Blue Man Society had evolved into the Singapore Chinese Society after decades of transformation, the roots of the society remained the same. For many years, many Nanyang evil arts experts had spied on Wuxia, assassinated high-ranking officials and tycoons, and committed crimes. Wang Chongyan had always dreamed of taking revenge and wiping out the entire Wuxia martial arts community. However, he was more patient than Lin Zhenyu. He had been accumulating his strength and was a major threat to the martial arts community and the military in Wuxia. It was a headache for the military and the martial arts community in Wuxia. The battle at the peak of Mount Everest was also a test of the attitude of the Singapore Chinese Society towards the martial arts community and the military in Wuxia. This time, Kong Teichu had taken the initiative to take control of the Singapore Chinese Society. It was a first in history. Grandpa, will something happen to Jiang Tian? I heard that not only did he destroy Swirl Island, but he also killed many Singaporean police officers and wiped out the Guo family. I'm afraid that the Singaporean police will take action. Chao Jinjia said worriedly. The Singaporean government won't be so irrational. Chao Shixiang pondered for a moment and said, conventional firearms can't hurt Jiang Tian. As for weapons of mass destruction, how can they be used in a small place like Singapore? He smiled and said, however, contact the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and inform the Singaporean government immediately. Tell them that Wuxia is keeping a close eye on Kong Teichu. Kong Teichu had wiped out the Guo family, killed Guo Shihai, the family head of the Guo family, and killed Wang Chongyan of the Singapore Chinese Society. The news reached the Hilton Hotel. Paris Hilton, who was in the middle of a meeting, jumped up and shouted excitedly, "He's so amazing and powerful. He really did it. We don't have to fear the Guo family anymore." "Sister, what is it?" Jenny looked surprised. Many senior executives were also confused. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss how the Hilton family should withdraw from the Singapore market in an orderly manner. The Guo family was a local tyrant, and even the Hilton family was unable to deal with them. Stop the meeting. Prepare a luxurious cruise ship. I want to invite that magical hero of Wuxia to a banquet, Paris said excitedly. In the guest room downstairs, Adept Redleaf, who had also received the news, laughed loudly and said, "I told you. Master Kong definitely won't lose." Yeah, ever since Master Kong made his debut, he has won every battle. Wang Chongyan's old arms and legs are no match for him, Su Wenjie said excitedly. But Master Kang's methods are too ruthless. He wiped out the Guo family in one night, and even wiped out the headquarters of the Singapore Chinese Society. We didn't even have the chance to watch. Tao Fengshe said regretfully. Wuxia, 5 Tiger Camp, Saber ancestral land of the Broken Sect. Damn, Kong Taichu is too powerful. He even killed Wang Chongyan. Wang Chongyan is a martial artist who is even stronger than Lin Zhenyu. Proud and elated. Proud and elated. I don't think it's surprising. Although Wang Chongyan was also at the peak of the transcendent state, he was too eager for quick success. I heard that he started to practice the Nanyang sorcery. As the saying goes, evil will never prevail over good. Although the sorcery is strong, it goes against the laws of nature. It's righteous. At the Saber training ground, a group of martial artists were discussing excitedly. Among them, a 17 or 18-year-old youth was shouting excitedly. Suddenly, Zhang Qitian walked over and scolded. "What are you all talking about? Stop practicing saber." Many of the martial artists were so scared that their faces turned pale. Some of them quickly covered the youth's mouth. The youth was also in a panic. Zhang Qitian gave the youth a friendly smile and turned to leave. After Zhang Qitian left, the martial brothers beside him said, "Are you crazy? Don't you know that faction leader Zhang hates Kong Taichu the most? Back then, he was beaten up by Kong Taichu in the Battle Dragon sect. Is that so?" The youth's head drooped. He was scared, but he was puzzled. But why did he smile at me? Didn't he hear what I said? What the crowd didn't see was that Zhang Qitian and Zhang Wendao soon arrived at the family's ancestral hall, offering sacrifices, kowtowing to the ancestors 3 times and 9 times, and said with tears in his eyes, "Thanks to Grandmaster Zhang's blessing, the Zhang family's blood feud has been avenged." This scene was repeated in many places in Wuxia. At Mount Fulong, Shen Mange rushed into the villa excitedly and shouted, "Sister Qing or Jiang Tian won." "What win? Don't jump around, you've just recovered from your injuries." Zhao Xueqing, who was sitting cross-legged and cultivating, said with a smile. "Jiang Tian has killed Wang Chongyan and taken control of the Singapore Chinese Society," Shen Mange said proudly. "Really, that's great." Zhao Xueqing cheered and then said worriedly, "I have to call him quickly and see if he's hurt." At the Long Formation base in Yanjin, many people were dejected. A tall and brawny man said angrily, "This is so annoying. Look at what the martial artists are saying. How dare they say that Kong Taichu is more powerful than Master Shifu?" He was Yi Zhantian's eldest disciple, one of the Long Formation group of 8, Kuang Long. In the Long Formation group, Yi Zhantian was the most powerful man in the group. However, other than him, there were also the Black Tortoise, Red Sparrow, Azure Dragon and White Tiger. The group of 8 followed closely behind them. Most of them were above the transcendent state. This man was wearing only a pair of thin camouflage pants on a snowy winter day. However, he did not seem to be afraid of the cold at all. His muscles bulged like a horned dragon, and his face was filled with a domineering and ruthless aura. Those who did not know him would think that he was just a brute. However, those who were familiar with the martial artists in Wuxia would be shocked. Sky Dragon was a transcendent grandmaster of physique refinement. He had achieved phenomenal success in his 23 missions, and had never failed a single mission. However, he was also hot-tempered. When he saw that many people on the Wuxia Martial Artists Forum were talking about Kang Taichu's impressive battle record, he could not hold it in any longer. Everyone seemed to think that Kang Taichu was more powerful than Yi Zhantian. What's the big deal? If Mr. Yi wanted to fight, Wang Chongyan would be no match for him. Why do these people like to praise Kang Taichu so much? Another member of the group of 8, Wuxia, said coldly. Our long formation group of 8 only has 100 people. However, we are responsible for suppressing the evil martial artists in our country and resisting the foreign overlords. We have to do things one by one. She was very beautiful with slanted eyebrows and a pair of phoenix eyes. However, her face was cold, and there was even a hint of ruthlessness. She was also a transcendent state grandmaster. Hee, our missions are top secret and cannot be announced to the public. However, the martial artists in Wuxia didn't care about these things. They only cared about Kang Taichu's power. If we wait any longer, our long formation group of 8 will be overshadowed by Kang Taichu. Another member of the group of 8, Huan Yin, said with a wry smile. What's even more depressing is that Kang Taichu has been ranked 3rd on the dark roll by the CIA. What? His ranking is higher than Mr. Ye's. As soon as the announcement came out, everyone was shocked and indignant. The dark roll was actually called the Global Overlords ranking. It was released every 6 months by the CIA and listed the top 20 most powerful overlords on the planet. Only the top intelligence agencies in the world had access to this website to see the ranking. Due to the black background of the dark roll, and the fact that few people knew about it, it was often referred to as the dark roll. The dark roll was one of the most reputable overlords in the world. Those who could make it to the top were the most powerful overlords. For example, Zeus, the ruler of the pantheon of Europe, was ranked 1st on the power ranking for 10 consecutive times. On the other side of Wuxia, Wu Qingtian and Wei Feilong had never made it to the dark roll. Lin Zhenyu had made it to the top 20 twice. Wang Chongyan had only made it to the top 23 times. Even so, he was at the bottom of the pack. Yi Zhantian, on the other hand, had made it to the 8th place on the power ranking several times. This was also the reason why everyone was unhappy. Speaking of which, Kang Taichu had made his debut less than 2 years ago. However, in the eyes of the CIA, he was more powerful than Yi Zhantian, who had dominated Wuxia for 20 years. This was unacceptable to them. Therefore, you must succeed in your mission to kill Xiaobin. At this moment, along with a warm voice, a black-clothed man slowly walked out from a room. Master! Dragon Head! The group of 8 and many other long formation elites bowed in unison. They were all transcendent state cultivators. If they joined the world, they would be able to dominate a region and become as powerful as Wu Qingtian and Yi Wudao. However, when they saw the man in black, their faces were filled with reverence and respect. This man was the dragon head of the long formation, the most powerful fighter in the world, the creator of the divine role in Wuxia, Yi Zhantian. Well, everyone, please be open-minded. Yi Zhantian's face was as clear as jade, his eyebrows slanted to his temples, and he exuded a heroic aura. He chuckled and said, "Don't be jealous. The rise of Jiang Taichu is a good thing for the martial arts world and the dragon group. But Kang Taichu has refused to join the long formation. He is too arrogant. He is not giving face to the long formation." Chao Jianjia wrinkled her nose and said with dissatisfaction, "Everyone has their own ambitions. He just doesn't like to be tied down." Yi Zhantian smiled faintly. Then his face turned serious. He said in a deep voice, "But this time Xiaobin is coming for the Wuxia long formation. If we don't kill him, our long formation will lose its prestige." "Yes, master." Everyone straightened their bodies in unison, and a fierce murderous aura rose steadily, soaring into the sky and spreading in all directions. "Master, are you not going to join the battle this time?" Chao Jinjia asked with a twinkle in her eyes. "Let's do it according to the circumstances. I want to see if Xiaobin is worth my time. My seclusion is not over yet." Yi Zhantian's face turned serious. He stepped into the room again. Chapter 317. Northeast China, Daxing Anling deep in the forest. The cold wind was howling, snow was falling, and the world was covered in white. Tang Linglong, Cheng Tiantian, Tyrannosaurus, Fox, and many other dragon warriors were wearing white combat uniforms, hiding in the dense forest like hunters waiting for their prey to appear. They stared vigilantly at the quiet border line. Linglong, well done. Those 3 B-class arcanists were easily killed by you, Fox said in a low voice with a look of admiration. Tang Linglong acted as if she didn't hear him. She used the binoculars to observe the possible hiding spots of the enemies in the distance and mumbled, I thought I could catch up with him as long as I focused on my cultivation. My power is already comparable to that of a transcendent master, but he has already dominated Southeast Asia and reached another level. The gap between us is getting bigger and bigger. Next to her, Cheng Tiantian heard her and sighed emotionally. She did not know how to comfort and persuade her. She understood Tang Linglong's complicated feelings for Jiang Tian, but the word love had caused many heroes in the past and present to fall deeply in love, unable to extricate themselves. Moreover, Tang Linglong was only a little girl. Hopefully, she would not become another Hua Qiangu. But soon, Tang Linglong pulled herself together. He has killed Wang Chongyan and trampled all of Southeast Asia under his feet. As his disciple, I can't embarrass him. Just as Cheng Tiantian was secretly relieved, Tang Linglong suddenly stood up, pulled out a military knife, and said in a deep voice, More arcanists have appeared. Let's go and trample them to death. In an instant, she burst out like an arrow, rolling up snow and pouncing on a few small black dots in the distance. Yes, Captain. Kill. For a moment, many warriors rushed out, their blood boiling. Not only Wuxia, but in fact the powerful people around the world, especially in Singapore and Southeast Asia, were deeply shocked. When he just received the news, the Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Hsien Loong, slammed the table in exasperation and shouted, This Kong Taechu is too lawless. How dare he invade the Guo family manor and kill our police? Does he think this is Wuxia? Singapore is a country ruled by law. Send out the bombers and fighter jets. The Prime Minister is right. Mr. Wang Zhongyan is our Star Continent state preceptor and guardian angel. He killed him just like that. This is too much. A mere country bumpkin from the mainland dares to run amok in Singapore? You're courting death. I think that this series of events should be categorized as a first-class terrorist activity. We should use thunderous and bloody methods to suppress it. Otherwise, how can Singapore be a nation? How can the people of Singapore call themselves home? The surrounding cabinet ministers also agreed and offered suggestions. They were all exasperated and filled with righteous indignation, as if Jiang Tian had dug up their ancestral graves. However, Deputy Director Lee of the police station quickly stopped him and said, Mr. Prime Minister, everyone, please be careful. Kong Taechu is not an ordinary person. He is a very powerful martial artist. So what if you're a martial artist? I don't believe that Kong Taechu can withstand the firepower of our modern army, Lee Hsien Loong said unhappily. Martial artists were indeed powerful, but only immortal state warriors could withstand the might of a modern army. Even immortal state warriors had gone into hiding after the rise of nuclear weapons, laser weapons, and other modern weapons. They no longer dared to come out and do evil. Kong Taechu is not an ordinary martial artist. He is known as the #1 Grandmaster on the divine role of Wuxia. Director Lee thought back to the day when Jiang Tian chopped down the helicopter at the Guo family's mansion. He was so scared that his soul almost jumped out of his body. He said earnestly, moreover, he has connections with the military of Wuxia. He was once the martial arts consultant of Wuxia's War Dragon, and a recipient of the National Hero Medal. Their Ministry of Foreign Affairs has already contacted us. Is that so? Lee Hsien Loong's face darkened. If Jiang Tian was just an ordinary martial artist, he would have been killed. However, if he was working with the military of a superpower like Wuxia, then they would have to be careful. Especially since the Ministry of Foreign Affairs had contacted the Singapore police, it was intriguing. It showed that the Wuxia government valued this man greatly. Premier Lee, are we just going to let Kong Taechu off the hook for killing my family members? More importantly, he has killed a lot of police officers. He has no regard for the Singapore government. Guo Huntao, the fifth son of the Guo family and the father of Guo Changsheng, said angrily. I request to lead the police to arrest Jiang Taichu, to show the world the severity of our Singapore government and police's laws. He was also a big shot in the Singapore police force and had great influence in Singapore. Seeing his father, son and brother killed and the Guo family defeated, he couldn't take it lying down. Kong Taichu is a cultivator of both Dharma spells and martial arts. He can kill people from 100 miles away. He even killed Wang Chongyan. How can ordinary police officers be his match? Guo Huntao, don't be rash. You will not only hurt yourself, but also Premier Li. At the side, an aged yellow-robed old monk spoke with a benevolent countenance, twirling his Buddhist beads as he advised. He was known as the Red Boat Venerable Master, and was the state preceptor of Singapore in the 1990s and early 2000s. He was on good terms with Li Xianlong's father, Li Guangyao, and protected Singapore for 20 years. It was only when he lost to Wang Chongyan in a battle 10 years ago that he gave up the position of state preceptor. He is just bluffing. Even Wang Chongyan can't kill people from 100 miles away. Guo Huntao said defiantly. While he was talking, he suddenly let out a shrill scream. His face twisted in pain and his limbs twitched. Li Xianlong and Director Li were still in shock when they saw Guo Huntao's chest glowing red. His heart expanded like a red lotus. The red light could even penetrate his skin and bones. Even his beating heart could be seen clearly. Suddenly, in the midst of the heart-wrenching scream, bang! Guo Huntao's heart shattered and half of his chest exploded. Blood, broken bones and internal organs splattered all over Li Xianlong's face. The blood-curdling screams came to an abrupt end as Guo Huntao fell to the ground with a loud thud. His body smashed into the ground, leaving behind a glaring scarlet trail. A bloody shadow spread out from his chest and formed a strange resonance. A voice came out. This is killing people from 100 miles away. Unfortunately, you don't even know how you died. The entire place was dead silent. Not a single sound could be heard. Many senior officials of Singapore kept quiet out of fear. Only Director Li said in horror. This is Kong Taichu's voice. Even Li Xianlong's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. He was deeply frightened and a bead of sweat appeared on his forehead. His mansion and office were protected by fully armed and brave bodyguards, bulletproof cars, and private planes for long-distance travel. However, Jiang Taichu was able to kill people from 100 miles away with a thought, which made him feel that it was impossible to guard against him, and was extremely difficult to deal with. Are we still going to attack Kong Taichu? After a long while, a hoarse voice asked. No one brought up this topic. The spacious meeting room was dead silent. Even Li Xianlong kept his mouth shut. Everyone looked at each other. No one dared to bring up this topic again. Sigh, I'm afraid Master Kong has already seen the truth of the immortal state. He can speak the truth. His words are the law. Venerable Red Boat was stunned for a long time. He then sighed with admiration. Premier Li, it's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. There are opportunities and danger. Why don't we invite Master Kong to be the Grand Preceptor of Singapore? Master, will he accept it? I don't dare to face him. Li Xianlong's face turned even paler. He pondered for a moment, and said with a hoarse voice. Where there's a will, there's a way. This old man is willing to accompany Premier Li. Let's talk about it with emotion. Venerable Red Boat said with his hands clasped together. When the incident at the Premier's residence happened, Jiang Tian was already at the Singapore Chinese Society's main hall on Swirling Island. He had begun to loot and clean up the mess. At the same time, Hong Yi, Su Wenjie, Tao Fengshi, and other calligraphy experts from the southern faction had already arrived at Swirling Island. The Hilton sisters had also brought along their helpers to help. First, he ordered all the members of the Singapore Chinese Society's consecrators, elders, guards, disciples of the Wang family, servants, and womenfolk to gather in the middle of the courtyard. Anyone who disobeyed would be killed on the spot. Following that, boxes of Dharma treasures were moved out. The Singapore Chinese Society had been established in the Republic of China. It had a few decades of history, and had plundered without restraint. Its wealth was simply dazzling. Jewels, jade antiques, Paintings, gold and silver had been reduced to mere decorations. Jiang Tian did not care about these things. He was more interested in spirit herbs, array formation materials, and cultivation resources. Wang Chongyan is indeed the retired emperor of Singapore. He has not plundered the people's wealth all these years. Jiang Tian grabbed a few pieces of chalcedony and laughed heartily. Chalcedony was the best quality jade. It was much more precious than the imperial glass jade. The Yamaguchi-gumis Inagawa Kai had hunted down the Chung family for a few years just for 4 pieces of chalcedony. However, there were at least a few dozen pieces of chalcedony. There are even a few rosemary seeds. Rosemary flowers emit the most natural and mesmerizing fragrance. Even the best perfume in the world pales in comparison. Jiang Tian found a few more spirit herb seeds stored in a jade bottle. He laughed heartily. If I can make them, I will give them to Qing'er's mother. They will love them. After going through the materials, Jiang Tian distributed some of the materials to the various helpers in the Lingnan spell circle. The group of people were all very grateful. After that, Jiang Tian picked out a few useful items and put them in his storage ring. He looked at Paris and said, "Paris, do you have a private jet?" "I have a Gulfstream G650 private jet and a private airport." Paris winked at Jiang Tian and smiled seductively. Jiang Tian waved his hand and said, "All right, the rest will be sent to Wuxia. Don't leave anything behind." Below him, Brahma prostrated himself on the ground and shivered as he said with a trembling voice, "Grandmaster Jiang, these aren't all the artifacts. That old bastard Wang Chongyan still has a secret treasure vault. I'll take you there right now. Kang Teichu, you have gone too far. I will fight you to the death. Fan Tian, how dare you betray master? I will not let you go." Among the people kneeling on the ground, an old man suddenly stood up, straightened his neck, stomped his feet and cursed angrily. Chapter 318. He was Wang Tiexin, the son of Wang Chongyan. He was also an ethereal enlightenment sorcerer, and was quite famous in Singapore. At this moment, when he saw his father's murderer, Jiang Tian, take all the treasures, he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "I wanted to let the Wang family go. After all, my fight with Wang Chongyan had nothing to do with you." Jiang Tian smirked and said, "But your scream reminded me that you have a deep grudge against me. Let's kill all of you." "What? You dare to kill my entire family? Are you still human? You are a devil." Wang Tiexin was shocked. "Haha, a devil? How do you know about my life?" Jiang Tian sneered and reached out with his right hand. He grabbed a cloud of blood mist from Wang Tiexin's body. Then he condensed the blood into an incantation. Bloodline curse. The blood-colored talisman immediately shot out dense threads that connected to the many Wang family disciples. In the end, it actually intertwined into a spiderweb. "Go to hell!" Jiang Tian shouted. Kaboom! Kaboom! Muffled sounds rang out again and again. Many Wang family disciples caught on fire and were burned to ashes. Even the disciples of the Wang family, who were tens of miles away in the distant star continent, were not spared. This is the bloodline curse. Once you have a person's bloodline, you can trace it back to its source and kill everyone related to it. The sect leader of the Blood Witch sect quickly knelt on the ground and trembled. He didn't even dare to look at Jiang Tian. Compared to Jiang Tian's invincible spells, the spells of the Blood Shaman cult were like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division when they met calculus. They could be said to be extremely shallow and not worth mentioning. "We surrender. Grandmaster Jiang, please spare our lowly lives. We will definitely be loyal and devoted to you, even if we have to die 10,000 deaths." Many of the Nanyang sorcery experts submitted and kowtowed to show their loyalty. They were so scared that they pissed their pants. Most of them had joined the Chinese Society of Singapore as consecrators and treated Wang Chongyan as equals. Now that Jiang Tian was in control, they had no such qualifications. In their eyes, Kang Teichu was even more terrifying than Wang Chongyan. They could only be slaves. When he sensed that there were 3 blood relatives of the Wang family that had died in China, Jiang Tian nodded his head in satisfaction. At this point, all of Wang Zhongyan's blood relatives within 5 generations had died. Cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots to prevent future troubles was the ruthless method of the Taichu celestial venerate back then. He looked at Brahma and said, "Brahma, you are a smart person. I will spare your life. Take me to the treasure room." "Grandmaster Jiang, this way please." Brahma Heaven had a servile appearance as he led the way in front. Not long after, they arrived in front of a tropical stone-thatched cottage. Brahma said worriedly, "Master Kong, the treasure room is underground. However, it is sealed by a stone door and filled with formations and traps. It is very dangerous." Jiang Tian scanned with his divine sense and saw that there were formations and traps. There were water dungeons, wall arrows, cages, pits, needles. There were large formations and a few small defensive formations. Under the protection of these formations and traps, even a martial arts master with transcendent stage internal force would find it difficult to break in, let alone an ordinary person. However, to Jiang Tian, these were not even worth mentioning. They were not a threat at all. Whoosh! Jiang Tian took out the black flying sword and slashed down. A black light slashed down like the Milky Way. Kaboom! With a bang, it sounded like a grenade had exploded. The thatched cottage collapsed and basketball-sized rocks flew in all directions. After the black sword chi destroyed the thatched cottage, it didn't slow down at all. It directly cut a large hole in the stone door, revealing an endless passageway. Jiang Tian strode in as if he was entering his own backyard. He was unimpeded all the way. Is this the legendary one force breaks all? Brahma was horrified and quickly followed. In the past, everyone regarded this treasure room as a forbidden area and said how powerful the formations were. However, Jiang Tian only needed one sword strike to completely destroy the formation. That was too powerful and domineering. This is the treasure room of that old man Wang Chongyan. Soon the two reached the bottom of the cave. Brahma introduced excitedly. This was a dark room with a diameter of 20 square meters. The stone walls were inlaid with luminous pearls. These things could be sold for millions outside, but Jiang Tian did not even look at them. Jiang Tian's gaze fell on the ancient shelves filled with boxes. There were all kinds of magic weapons and spiritual herbs hidden in them. These are the treasures that old thief Wang Chongyan wantonly plundered. There are dozens of 100-year-old great herbs. Brahma took out the boxes one by one and opened them to show Jiang Tian. He excitedly introduced them. In addition, there are some compasses, ghost-attracting streamers, jade talismans and other magic weapons. Many of them were used by the ancient spiritual masters. They have a long history and contain powerful magic power. There are also some materials. In Brahma's view, these were just some spiritual herbs, great herbs and magic weapons. However, in Jiang Tian's view, these were no less than a treasure room full of cultivation materials. A treasure room full of unlimited possibilities. Many of the herbs and magic weapon materials that he did not know how to use on Earth were of great use to Jiang Tian. Black wind fruit contains wind attribute energy. 300 years old, can change the density of the air. Its juice can be used to refine wind attribute talismans, such as the 1,000 Miles Godly Traversal Talisman. Sunflower water vine contains sunflower water energy. 500 years old, can be used to refine the water spirit pill, which can awaken the water spirit body. Vitality tree sap, 1,000 years old, contains powerful vitality and energy. It can be used to refine the real energy cultivation pill, which can quickly restore one's vitality. It can even help a cultivator break through. Heaven thunder bamboo, 5,000 years old. I'm afraid it's a relic from prehistoric times. This is amazing and famous in the cultivation world. It can be used to refine lightning attribute flying swords and magic weapons. Jiang Tian recognized the herbs and magic weapon materials one by one. The smile on his face grew wider and wider. He could barely suppress his carefree smile. It could be said that the Singapore Wuxia Society's foundation was too deep. Wang Zhongyan, with the might of the Blue Cloth Society, had been plundering heaven and earth treasures since the Republic of China. Back then he had turned the entire Wuxia upside down. After establishing the Singapore Wuxia Society, he used his status as the Emperor of Singapore to command many tycoons and disciples in Southeast Asia. After spending decades of hard work, He had also turned Southeast Asia upside down. Many materials, resources, and great herbs could be said to be as vast and boundless as the sea. This kind of deep foundation was not something that Jiang Tian and the rest could compare to in a short period of time. This trip was really worth it. Jiang Tian sighed. He felt that taking the initiative to attack this time was the right choice. Not only was there no future trouble, but the harvest was also too rich. Jiang Tian was now full of pride, as if he had become a nouveau riche. This was a feeling that he had not felt when he defeated the three major families of Jinling and turned the Medicine King Group into a company with a market value of hundreds of billions. After all, tens of billions of assets were too easy for a cultivator, or even a transcendent master to obtain. However, these heaven and earth treasures were too rare and priceless. They were too hard to come by. Jiang Tian even found some eggs of the gold-devouring beetle. If these eggs were cultivated, they would be a huge cheat. They could devour all kinds of metals. Any metal-type magical weapon or weapon would be destroyed in minutes. Unfortunately, these eggs had been incubated for too long and had not been successfully hatched. Their vitality had been cut off and they had lost their vitality. What is this? Just as Jiang Tian was about to ask Brahma to move all the treasures onto the plane and transport them to Wuxia on a special plane, suddenly, his divine sense inadvertently swept over a glittering egg-sized stone. This stone contained an extremely powerful and sharp chi of Gengjin. Master Kong, are you talking about this stone? Oh, this stone is very strange. 20 years ago, I found it from a 1,000-year-old tree on Sa Island, which was a deserted island. Lord Brahma explained. That tree looked like a phoebe, also known as the man-eating tree. According to legend, it could move freely for hundreds of years and devour humans and beasts. The local natives called it the tree god. When old Wang and I went there, we found that the tree had been killed by a lightning strike. Then we found this strange stone in the ashes and brought it back. He shook his head and said, my master thought it was some kind of jade essence or spirit jade. He studied it for 2 or 3 years but couldn't find anything. So he left it here. It was during that operation that we found Sa Island. Since then, we have used this island as our Taoist field and headquarters. Haha, jade essence, spirit jade, Wang Chongyan is really blind. Jiang Tian shook his head with a sarcastic expression. He stretched out his hand and the stone flew up automatically and fell into Jiang Tian's palm. Jiang Tian held the stone in his hand and said with a smile, this is a spiritual core of gold and wood. Gold and wood? Spiritual core? What is that? Lord Brahma was puzzled. The so-called gold and wood is a divine wood that contains a lot of metal elements. After it passes the thunder tribulation, it will have spirituality and can walk freely. It can even transform into a human form, fly in the sky, travel in the sea, and live for thousands of years. Jiang Tian smiled and said, the spiritual core is equivalent to the golden elixir formed by the immortals in ancient times after they became immortals and saints. It is the crystallization of spiritual chi formed by absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. It is also the essence of its life. So those legends are true, not myths? Lord Brahma was shocked and said, a tree can walk and have spirituality. If a tree can live for tens of thousands of years, doesn't that make it an immortal? What's so strange about a divine wood having spirituality? Everything has spirituality. It's just that the spirituality varies. Jiang Tian looked at the gold and wood spiritual core in his hand and said lightly, you can say that it is an immortal. However, to be precise, it is a tree demon, a demonic cultivator. It should be regarded as a demonic immortal. Although this gold and wood spiritual core was only the size of an egg, it was extremely heavy, even heavier than metal. Moreover, it was shining with golden light. Under the perception of Jiang Tian's mind sense, there were streams of gold and wood spiritual chi lingering and fluctuating. The gold and wood spiritual core is the best material to build a metal body. A metal body is invulnerable and feels no pain. Its combat power is unparalleled. However, there are pros and cons in everything. Generally, it is the most difficult to build a metal body. Looking at the gold and wood spiritual core in his hand, Jiang Tian's mind was spinning rapidly. He already had an idea. Take refining the simplest copper armor and iron body in the cultivation world as an example. It requires soaking in copper water, drinking mercury, and swallowing gold sand for decades or even hundreds of years. However, because this kind of pain is not something that ordinary people, or even those cultivation geniuses, can bear, it is more likely to cause the cultivator's qigong deviation and his soul to be destroyed. But with the gold and wood spiritual core, it is different. The spiritual qi is of the metal attribute and is mainly used for killing. However, with the wood spiritual qi, it can nourish, absorb, and refine it. His eyes gradually became firm. I am still immortal. To put it bluntly, I have no spiritual root. Not to mention Qing'er's immortal body of the stainless phoenix. Even many people with good aptitudes can't compare with it. Why don't I use this gold and wood spiritual core to rebuild my body? Chapter 319. While Jiang Tian was thinking, Fan Tian asked curiously, Master Kong, what do you need this spirit core for? That's none of your business. How could Jiang Tian reveal such a secret to others? After putting the metal and wood spirit core into his storage ring, he flew out of the treasure room. Master Kong, all the treasures have been packed and sent to Wuxia on a private plane. You can rest assured now. A moment later, Paris finished arranging everything and walked to Jiang Tian. She smiled and reported to Jiang Tian. Thank you for your hard work. Jiang Tian nodded slightly. Master Kong, do you want to go to Wuxia? I heard that the spring festival of Wuxia is coming soon. Jenny said with a hint of reluctance. No. Jiang Tian shook his head and said indifferently. I want to go to Singapore and take a look. I understand. Master Kong, you want to test the Singapore government's attitude towards Master Kong, right? Parise asked with her beautiful eyes. That's only one of the reasons. Also, I want my wife to come over for a vacation. The winter of Wuxia is still very cold. Jiang Tian's face revealed a gentle smile. Seeing Jiang Tian's smile, Parise was dazzled and envious. He must be smiling because he thought of his wife. He loved his wife so much. He didn't know what kind of woman would have such good fortune. Jenny's face turned pale. She asked involuntarily, So Master Kong is already married? Parise glared at her sister and said coquettishly in English, Sister, Wuxia people like to be reserved. You're too straightforward. Mr. Jiang won't like you. Jenny smiled bitterly and said, I couldn't help it. But since he's already married, I'll give them my blessings. Paris smiled seductively, her eyes seductive. She said in a sweet voice, My cute little sister, it's not a problem that he has a wife. Nothing can stop true love and passion. That's you. I can't do such a thing. Besides, I believe in Mr. Jiang's loyalty to marriage. Jenny rolled her eyes at her sister, who had an extremely messy private life, and said speechlessly, What are you guys talking about? Jiang Tian asked a little gloomily. In fact, his English was so bad that he couldn't understand their conversation at all. Looks like I have to find some time to learn all kinds of foreign languages. Otherwise, how can I dominate Japan, Korea, and the United States in the future? Naturally, Paris wouldn't rashly reveal her sister's unrealistic thoughts about Jiang Tian. She glanced at Jiang Tian charmingly and laughed coquettishly. I have a cruise ship called Princess Jenny. My grandmother gave it to Jenny as her coming-of-age birthday present. Now it's anchored at the Malacca harbor. If Mr. Jiang wants to, you can invite your distinguished wife to spend a wonderful vacation on the cruise ship. I don't think many people can resist the temptation of tropical fruits and sunbathing at this time. Okay. Jiang Tian nodded and gladly agreed. I can also invite the Prime Minister of Singapore to join us, and create a chance for Mr. Jiang to meet. Paris smiled. You're a smart person. Jiang Tian nodded. But your distinguished wife must be a delicate and weak classical beauty, like Lin Daiyu, right? If the Singapore military and police really take action, won't she be a burden to you? Paris reminded cleverly. She's never been a burden to me. Jiang Tian looked in the direction of Wuxia with a gentle gaze, and the corner of his mouth curved into a happy smile. You, on the other hand, aren't you afraid that your cruise ship will become cannon fodder if a fight breaks out? Jiang Tian asked with a smile. I'm not worried. Paris smiled. That cruise ship is only worth a few million USD, and Mr. Jiang is giving me at least 100 million USD. If the price of a cruise ship is to become Mr. Jiang's friend, I don't think there's a better deal in the world than this. Suddenly, she snapped her fingers and smiled. Mr. Jiang, why don't I give you this cruise ship? I think you should ask your sister for her opinion. Doesn't this belong to her? Jiang Tian looked at Jenny and smiled. Is there a problem? Paris looked at Jenny. Although it was a question, her eyes were full of threat, as if saying, if you don't agree, I'll beat you up. Of course, it's my honor to give it to Mr. Jiang. Jenny wanted to cry but had no tears. On the same day, she fell out of love. Although it was just a crush, she still gave away her beloved cruise ship. It was too sad. Paris, you're a shrewd businesswoman. Jiang Tian praised her again. Wuxia always reciprocates politeness with politeness. I hope that you can take over the Guo family's assets. You can take the commission according to the market price. Also, after this is done, I'm willing to sell the Guo family's hotel, shipping company, and other major assets to you. I'll give you a 10% discount according to the market price. Jiang Tian didn't want to expand his assets. The bigger the assets, the easier it would be to be targeted and suppressed by his opponents. He didn't care how much he sold it for. Too much money didn't mean much to him. This was because there were many cultivation resources that you couldn't even buy. Just like Wang Chongyan's treasure vault. Even if you spent billions, you wouldn't be able to open the door. The reason was very simple. To any top expert, cultivation resources and cultivation were the most important. Money was only a method to gather treasures of the heavens and earth to improve one's cultivation. Oh my God, Master Kong, you're so cool. Paris smiled happily. She hugged Jiang Tian's waist and gave him a kiss. Hey, I have a wife. Jiang Tian knew that she was hot and passionate. Her loose and unrestrained personality was famous in the world's upper class, so he didn't take it to heart. Paris let go of Jiang Tian and smiled. However, I'm willing to buy it at a fair price. Also, I'll reserve 10% of the gold shares for you. You can even influence the decisions of the Hilton family. You're too cunning. Jiang Tian smiled helplessly. He couldn't describe her as smart or witty. The reason why Paris reserved the gold shares was obvious. She wanted to tie Jiang Tian to the Hilton family's war chariot. That's right. From now on, you're my boss. You have to protect me. Paris smiled slyly. Jinling Jiang Manor. Virtuous people of all ages gathered in one place. The Chinese New Year was coming. Firecrackers and fireworks sounded from time to time in the Jiang Manor. The atmosphere was filled with celebration. Since the beginning of the year, the Jiang family had been on the rise. They had defeated the three most powerful families in Jinling. The Medicine King Group's new product launch was an instant hit. Even Jiang Chao, who was ignorant and incompetent, opened a restaurant and earned several million yuan a year, which made Second Aunt very happy. He had no choice. The Medicine King Group had too many jobs. Just the customers' spending alone was enough to make him a lot of money. Why isn't my cousin back yet? I miss him so much. Outside the courtyard, Jiang Wanner was eating a lollipop. She pulled Qingyer's arm and asked expectantly. She liked Qingyer very much. Her cousin-in-law was amazing. She didn't even need a lighter to set off fireworks. She just waved her finger and flames appeared. Her magic was amazing. He's sunbathing in Southeast Asia. He doesn't care about us. What's there to miss? Qingyer joked. Because my cousin's red packet is always the biggest. Jiang Wanner said honestly. Oh, do you think it's bigger than my cousin-in-law's red packet? Qingyer smiled gently. She waved her hand, and a stack of 100 yuan bills slipped out of her rabbit-shaped storage ring. What a magic trick. Jiang Wanner was dumbfounded. She then asked curiously, Sister-in-law, is this my New Year's money? Well, take it. Qingyer giggled. You're the best. Jiang Wanner immediately cheered and stuffed a lot of money into her pockets. Her two pockets were almost full. At that moment, Zhao Xueqing's phone rang. She took the phone and scolded with a smile. I was just saying that you're heartless. How am I heartless? Jiang Tian asked in surprise. Oh, you're sunbathing in Southeast Asia and flirting with beautiful women. You've forgotten me and won. Zhao Xueqing said angrily. I'm innocent. You don't know how dangerous this battle was. I wiped out the Guo family. Jiang Tian laughed and said. Besides, there were hundreds of Singaporean police officers. They were beaten to a pulp. Do you really think I went on a vacation? The police also attacked? How many died? More than 20. Well, you've become a terrorist in their eyes. Qing'er could not help but feel a little worried. She sighed and said, Will the Singaporean police treat you as an enemy? They won't do anything to you, right? Do you want me to go over and help? I don't think it's very likely. Otherwise, they wouldn't have waited until now. Besides, I'm not afraid of them if they do. Jiang Tian smiled and said. However, you still have to make a trip. Zhao Xueqing's eyes were infinitely gentle, but her mouth was teasing Jiang Tian. Pfft, you're still afraid. I'll let you come over for a vacation. Jiang Tian laughed and said. Jinling is cold and wet in winter. Come to the tropics to get some sun. I got you a cruise ship. Don't mention how awesome it is. Haha. At least you have some conscience. Then I'll fly over immediately. Zhao Xueqing laughed and said. Fly over? Do you use a shuttle? Can't I? Zhao Xueqing said. It's so troublesome to book a ticket. Shuttles are very fast. I've tried it before. They can break the sound barrier. Well, you'd better save it. Jiang Tian said. Huaxia's domestic aviation control is very strict. Don't let the military treat it as an enemy plane and shoot it down again. After all, we're all descendants of the Yellow Emperor. It's not good to kill our own soldiers. Well, that's true. Maybe it's an air raid. I'll book a ticket then. Qing'er smiled and pulled Jiang Weiner into the Jiang family's mansion. You're going to Singaporean for a vacation to look for cousin Jiang Tian? Jiang Weiner asked curiously. Yes. I want to go too. Jiang Weiner begged. Your cousin will be back soon. We'll stay there for 3 days at most. No, I want to go. I miss cousin Jiang Tian. Jiang Weiner refused and was about to cry. Chapter 320. She was only 5 or 6 years old. Like a porcelain doll, she was extremely cute. Her beautiful eyes were full of tears, and her pitiful appearance was irresistible. Okay, if your mother allows it, I'll take you there, okay? Qing'er squatted down and pinched her little face. Cousin-in-law is the best. The little girl suddenly smiled through her tears. Qing'er is back. Hello, sister-in-law. The people who were chatting with the old man in the living room stood up and greeted Qing'er respectfully when they saw her. Jiang Bangxia quickly gave up the seat next to the old man. Not only Jiang Chao and Jiang Bangxia's peers, but even eldest aunt and youngest aunt were also respectful and nervous. In fact, the Zhao family of Linzhou was just a third-rate family. Originally, they looked down on Qing'er a little, but now it was different. A wife should be proud of her husband. Jiang Tian was the head of the Jiang family. He made the ruined Jiang family flourish and was famous in Jinling as Jiang Tian's wife, who dared to disrespect her. Moreover, she was now a cultivator. It was no exaggeration to say that she could fly in the sky and burrow into the ground like a living immortal. When the Jiang family was attacked by the Dark Ones, she turned the tide. Everyone recognized and was very grateful to her. Don't be so polite. Talk about your business. Qing'er was a little uncomfortable with their trembling respect. It felt like she was a monster. She nodded and smiled at everyone. Then, she walked to the seat next to the old man and sat down. She smiled and said, Old man, Mom, Dad, Jiang Tian asked me to go to Nanyang Star Continent to accompany him. And me. Jiang Weiner pointed at herself, afraid that she would be left behind. Ah, he's not coming back for the spring festival? The old man was a little disappointed. Qing'er naturally wouldn't tell him about Jiang Tian's killing in Southeast Asia. She said, he's not playing. He wants to talk about some business cooperation. Oh, Jiang Tian wants to push our Medicine King group into the Southeast Asian market? The old man took it seriously. He was relieved and chuckled. Jiang Tian's idea is not bad. There are many Chinese in Southeast Asia, and their acceptance of Chinese medicine is very high. It's easier to enter the market. Wow, this time is our Medicine King group going global. Jiang Bengxia and Jiang Lin were suddenly excited. Zhao Xueqing didn't say anything. The old man immediately expressed his support and said with a smile, Go quickly. You young people have your own careers. It's more important to work hard. You don't have to accompany an old man like me. All right then, Sister Ziwei, help me book a ticket. Qing'er looked at Yi Ziwei and smiled. Yi Ziwei immediately made a call to her secretary. When she heard back, she smiled and said, There are no direct flights to Singapore. You'll have to transfer to Yangcheng or Zhonghai. Let's transfer to Zhonghai then. I went to university in Zhonghai back then, so I can meet some of my classmates. Qing'er thought for a moment and smiled. Okay. Yi Ziwei answered. Soon it was done. On the other hand, Jiang Tian had just hung up the phone when Paris smiled sweetly and said, Master Kong, good news. The former Venerable Master Red Boat and Premier Li Xianlong are here to see you. They're already outside the island. Why is it good news? They want to invite Master Kong to be the state preceptor of Singapore. Paris couldn't hide her excitement. She felt that she had made the right bet. It was the smartest investment she had ever made. And she was now riding on the coattails of the state preceptor. Let them in. Jiang Tian's figure flashed and appeared in the main altar hall like a god. Disciple greets Master Kong. Li Xianlong's face was full of reverence and fear. He didn't dare to say a word. He lowered his head deeply and didn't even dare to look at Jiang Tian. Venerable Master Red Boat bowed respectfully and said, Venerable Master Red Boat greets Master Kong. What's the matter? Jiang Tian was a man of few words. We are willing to enshrine Master Kong as the state preceptor of Singapore. After Master Kong becomes the state preceptor, he will have the Singapore government as an important ally. All the treasures in Singapore will be at Master Kang's disposal. With Master Kang's wisdom, he won't refuse. Venerable Master Red Boat knelt on the ground and said respectfully, Singapore will hold a grand coronation ceremony. Many high-ranking government officials and Singapore's rich and powerful families will attend. The Guo family's assets will all belong to Master Kong. With the endorsement of the Singapore government, it will take effect immediately. Li Xianlong added, bowing deeply. Do you think that you have the right to cooperate with me just because you have all the treasures in the pill land of Singapore and the power of the rulers of small countries? If I want to get something, won't I be able to come and go as I please? Jiang Tian revealed a mocking smile. Then, under Li Xianlong's shocked gaze, he said calmly, Remember, you are not my allies but my slaves. You may have power, but I have your lives in my hands. We understand. Li Xianlong couldn't resist the majestic pressure, and knelt on the ground with a thud. However, seeing that you, Li Xianlong, are sensible and didn't provoke me, I will grant you the state preceptor position. Let me correct you, this is not a coronation ceremony. Why do I need the coronation of a small country's ruler? It should be called a coronation ceremony. Do it as soon as possible, tomorrow morning. My wife will be here tomorrow night. I want to accompany her. Jiang Tian smiled and slowly walked out of the hall. We will follow Master Kang's instructions. Venerable Master Red Boat said respectfully. Thank you, Master Kong. Thank you, Master Kong. This is the blessing of the Li family, the blessing of the people, and the blessing of Singapore. When Jiang Tian walked out of the hall, Li Xianlong realized that his back was cold and his body was drenched in sweat. The next day, Qing'er flew from Jinling to Zhonghai International Airport. There was a 3-hour break between flights. Qing'er held Jiang Weiner's hand and walked out of the airport. They took a taxi and went straight to Huadong University. Zhonghai was a first-tier city, second only to the capital, Yanjing. In terms of prosperity and economic development, it far surpassed Jinling. Even Huiyang city of Lingnan province was slightly inferior. When Zhao Xueqing came to this bustling city with simple luggage, her heart was filled with curiosity and awe. Yet now, she instead felt that all of this was ordinary and not worth mentioning. She was extremely indifferent towards it. As a self-cultivator, her mentality had changed. But when she thought of Huadong University, she still had a trace of expectation. This was her alma mater, where she spent 4 years of unforgettable university life. Sweet cake dessert shop on the east side of the school gate. A red Mercedes-Benz SUV was parked at the entrance. Qingya held Jiang Weiner's hand and pushed the door open. A store manager greeted them warmly. "Welcome, what would you like?" "A glass of freshly squeezed juice." "What would you like, Weiner?" "I want ice cream." "Fresh milk." A fashionably dressed girl who was sitting with her back to the door heard Zhao Xueqing's voice and quickly ran over. She hugged Qingya and smiled in surprise. "Qingya, you're here." "Sister Su, I'm on a business trip to Singapore. I'm in Zhonghai, so I came to see you." Zhao Xueqing smiled, and then looked at the card on the girl's chest. She smiled and said, "You've become the assistant to the chairman of Jiqing Investment?" She had also heard of this company. It could be on par with the famous Sequoia Capital, and was known as the SoftBank of Wuxia. Yes, now Sweet Cake Dessert Shop has opened more than a dozen branches in Zhonghai and has become the #1 cake and dessert brand. Sister Su pulled Qingya to sit down and said with a smile, "Brother Yi also withdrew from Sweet Cake and cashed out 200 million. As for me and some of the older members of the team, we followed Brother Yi to start another business. The new platform was invested in by Jiqing." Sister Su was very beautiful. She was tall, had exquisite facial features, and straight shoulder-length black hair, giving people a very refreshing feeling. In Zhonghai, she could be the assistant to the chairman of a big investment company. Her annual salary was also in the millions. At that time in Zhonghai, she was considered a gold-collar worker. However, when she mentioned Brother Yi, her face was full of reverence and her eyes were full of stars, like a brainless fan meeting her idol. "So Jiqing Investment is Brother Yi's?" Zhao Xueqing was stunned, then nodded and smiled. "Yes, he's not a simple person. In the end, he has to pursue a bigger career. Yes, back then Brother Yi was only a 4th-year student. I was still a graduate student. When he brought us to start a business, I only thought that he was messing around. Who knew that he would turn a small dessert shop into the #1 dessert brand in Zhonghai in just a year?" Sister Su smiled and said, "However, I later found out that he was actually Yi Qida's grandson. That's why he's so extraordinary." The waiter brought 2 cups of freshly squeezed juice, and a cup of fresh milk ice cream for Jiang Weiner. Zhao Xueqing sipped the juice and was slightly stunned. "What? He's actually Yi Qida's grandson? Our market economics textbook was written by Professor Yi Qida." Zhao Xueqing majored in finance at Huadong University's business school. It could be said that Yi Qida's existence was like a god to students of this major. In the early days of reform and opening up, as the dean of the School of Economics and Management, he proposed a market economy theory with the characteristics of Wuxia. It was like thunder in spring, avoiding the debate of capitalism or capitalism, and proposed a clear idea for Wuxia's reform and opening up. Later, he entered the core of Beijing's power, and became the chief think tank of Deng Gong and many other leaders. He made indelible contributions to the economic development of Wuxia. Now, Yi Qida was already a prominent figure in the field of economics in Wuxia. His every move could change the fate of an industry and region. He could give lectures to leaders in the Government Administration Council. Many provincial officials and the richest people on the Forbes list were his students. He was known as the imperial tutor in the field of economics in Wuxia. Yes, Yi Haochen is really too low-key. If someone else had such a background, wouldn't their tail be raised to the sky? Sister Su said with a face of reverence, but Haochen never talked about these relationships in front of his teachers and classmates. He didn't even publicize or use these relationships at work. A year ago, when I went back to school to attend the alumni gathering, I heard from our school's deanly that he didn't know Yi Haochen's identity at that time. "Oh, so he's so powerful," Zhao Xueqing said in surprise. "You didn't know? You didn't contact him?" Sister Su was surprised. Seeing Zhao Xueqing nod, she said coquettishly, "You really have no conscience. Yi Haochen was extraordinarily good to you back then. If it weren't for him, you wouldn't have been able to go to university." "That's true, but," Zhao Xueqing said with a wry smile. It could be said that Zhao Xueqing had always been very grateful to Yi Haochen. However, after she graduated from university, she immediately married Jiang Tian. Her life was a mess, and there was an endless mess to clean up. How could she have time to contact these old friends of hers? Chapter 321. Zhao Xueqing was the child of Zhao Huqing's deceased wife. Wei Fong used to be a little cold to her. Her college living expenses were also intermittent. Sometimes, she didn't even have money for food, let alone cosmetics and clothes. At that time, she was in her first year of college, and Yi Haochen was already in his fourth year. He founded the sweet desserts brand and opened several branches in the university town and the entire Zhonghai. Zhao Xueqing once applied for a job at Huadong University. Normally, they didn't hire part-time workers, but Yi Haochen sympathized with Zhao Xueqing's difficulties and hired her directly. Moreover, Yi Haochen took care of her and helped her a lot in college. He even let her be the store manager and gave her a good salary. It was because of this part-time job that Zhao Xueqing was able to establish herself in Zhonghai. She lived a carefree life and successfully completed her studies. Not only that, Yi Haochen also taught Zhao Xueqing a lot of management skills, and even changed her timid and inferior personality. He was indeed a good teacher and helpful friend. After graduation, it wasn't as simple as it was in school. Everyone had their own difficulties. Sister Su didn't ask much. She suddenly smiled mysteriously and said, "But Qing'er, do you know that Yi Haochen actually likes you?" "What are you kidding about? I'm just a country girl from Linzhou. Why would he like me?" Zhao Xueqing didn't believe it at all. "You don't know. Once it was raining heavily. He saw that you didn't have an umbrella in the shop and waited for the rain to stop under a tree by the roadside. He asked me if I had an umbrella. I said yes. He said that even if I did, I should use his umbrella and leave it for me. Then he rushed out, used his windbreaker to block the rain, and ran back to school with you." Sister Su said with a smile. "Haha, that's nothing. Maybe he likes to be in the rain." Zhao Xueqing's face was a little unnatural as she smiled faintly. He was very good. His vision was broad, his ability was extraordinary, and he treated people very well. He was a popular figure in school. Many female students liked him back then, and he was known as the most handsome senior. Now he had become a big entrepreneur. In everyone's eyes, he was a golden bachelor, a successful person. However, not to mention that Yi Haochen didn't make their relationship clear back then. Even if he did, she wouldn't regret being with Jiang Tian. In her heart, no one could compare to Jiang Tian. You have your good points. You are elegant and unrestrained. You have your family background. You have outstanding abilities. Those are all very good. But I just don't like them." Zhao Xueqing stopped asking about Yi Haochen. Sister Su began to show off her life over the years. High salary, flying around the world every day, marrying a rich second-generation heir with tens of millions in assets, buying a big house in Suhui district, and even the BMW SUV outside was hers. However, Sister Su introduced him as if she was familiar with her family treasures. "Yi Haochen is very powerful now. If you were with him back then, you would have definitely become a phoenix. His father is now the mayor of Zhonghai City, and he is the leader of the rich second generation in Zhonghai. He's our Zhicheng investment company, and he specializes in venture capital. He invests in high-tech companies, and then he packages them to be listed in Hong Kong before getting listed overseas. He's worth tens of billions. This kind of business is simply robbery. You know about Penguin, right? Wuxia's largest instant messaging software. He has 10% of the shares. It's said that it will be listed in 5 years. By then he will be the new rich of Wuxia. You don't know how powerful Brother Yi is. Last time, I accompanied Brother Yi to meet with a rich man in Yanjing to discuss some cooperation matters. During the dinner, the son of that rich man touched me. Brother Yi slapped him directly. Guess what? You think that boss will explode? Wrong. He was so scared that he was about to cry. He even asked his son to apologize to me. That rich man is so powerful. His uncle was once a deputy national leader. He is also a regular on the Forbes list. She also kept saying that Yi Haochen must have had a crush on Zhao Xueqing back then. She felt sorry for Zhao Xueqing for missing out on Yi Haochen. Jiang Wan who was eating dessert, smiled disdainfully and said, Auntie Sue, that's not very good. She's already married. Huh? Who is she? Sister Sue was slightly stunned and said with a smile. This is my husband's cousin. Her name is Jiang Wan. You're so mischievous. Don't interrupt when adults are talking. Sister Sue pinched Jiang Wan's little face, causing her to roll her eyes. Seeing that Zhao Xueqing was a little cold, Sister Sue said with a smile, You're already married. How are you doing? Are you happy? My husband is very good. He's very good to me too. Zhao Xueqing said with a smile. You're married? That's too bad. Sister Sue had also heard that Zhao Xueqing's marriage was not very happy. She had pretended not to know before. Zhao Xueqing looked at the time and said with a smile, All right, Sister Sue. My plane is about to take off. Let's talk next time. I'll send you off. Sister Sue quickly got up and sent Zhao Xueqing out. She then opened the door of the Mercedes-Benz SUV. I don't think that's a good idea. You're still working. It's too much trouble for you. I'll just take a taxi. Zhao Xueqing said with a smile, a little embarrassed. It's no trouble. Sister Sue smiled and pushed Jiang Wan and Zhao Xueqing into the car. They arrived at Zhonghai International Airport. Seeing that Sister Sue had also taken out her ticket and boarding pass, Zhao Xueqing was stunned. She said, Why are you also? Actually, I'm going to Singapore on a business trip too, and I'm going with Yi Haochen. Sister Sue smiled slyly and said, Are you looking forward to it? Looking forward to what? Zhao Xueqing frowned and said, But I'm quite surprised. What a coincidence. Sister Sue rolled her eyes and thought to herself, Keep pretending. That useless husband of yours can't stop you from loving Yi Haochen. Back then, you were his follower. Now he's on a higher level. They arrived at the boarding gate. A group of rich second-generation heirs of Zhonghai stood there chatting and laughing with a handsome young man. Yi Haochen's father was the mayor of Zhonghai, Yi Weihao. His grandfather was the economic tycoon Yi Qida. Huaxiao's first securities law was completed by him. He was also doing well in the investment industry, with a compound annual return of 100%. Naturally, he was admired by a group of friends. Their topics were very high-end. Basically, they talked about business opportunities, the opportunities and risks of emerging markets in Southeast Asia, and listing in the United States and Hong Kong. Zhao Xueqing didn't rush up to greet them. She stood aside and lowered her head to tease Jiang Wan. She even heard from a rich second-generation heir that Yi Haochen had bought a Seaview villa in Singapore worth 300 million and spent tens of millions on a yacht. A rich second-generation heir said enviously, Your Zhiqing investment report this year is out, right? You have plans to expand into Southeast Asia? That's an international financial tycoon. Yi Haochen smiled and said, My dad doesn't have that much power. I'm just a partner. You know Feng Zhambua, the finance professor in Hong Kong, right? They want to develop Southeast Asia and establish a Southeast Asian Financial Revitalization Society. He's my grandfather's junior who was a visiting scholar in the United States. He invited me to join. It's just a small matter. Behind them sat a group of middle-aged men with a white-haired old man in the center. Zhao Xueqing recognized the old man. He was Yi Haochen's grandfather, Yi Qida. When there was a break, Sister Sue pointed at Zhao Xueqing and said with a smile, Chairman Yi, look who's here. Xueqing? The moment he saw Zhao Xueqing, Yi Haochen was pleasantly surprised. He quickly walked over and shook hands with Zhao Xueqing. He said, I was wondering why Su Jie was dragging her feet. It turns out that she came with you. Why? You're also on this flight? Yeah, I'm going to Singapore to accompany my husband. He's traveling there. Zhao Xueqing smiled. Oh, so that's how it is. Yi Haochen looked at Zhao Xueqing with a complicated expression. She was wearing a short white trench coat with a white shirt and black silk leggings. Her delicate, snow-white ankles were exposed between her high heels. Although it was simple, he could see that the tailoring was decent. The stitches were dense, so it should be a good brand. But for some reason, when he saw this well-behaved girl who followed him around in university, he felt that her temperament was otherworldly. She was elegant and peerless with a trace of charm. It made his heart flutter. You're going to Singapore too? What a coincidence. Other than business activities, I'm also planning to travel there for a few days. Let's go together. Did you change your phone number? Yi Haochen asked. No, it hasn't. But we'll see when the time comes. I have a lot of things to do, so I might not have the time. Zhao Xueqing smiled. Oh, that's good. Let's see when the time comes. Yi Haochen looked at Zhao Xueqing in surprise. A few years ago, whenever he arrived at Huadong University, Zhao Xueqing would always ask to meet him. She would follow him around like a shadow, whether it was to report about work or to ask him to answer questions about her life and studies. But this time, when he took the initiative to invite her, she was neither cold nor warm. He could no longer see the worship in her eyes or the blush on her pretty face. Was it because she was married? That couldn't be right. He heard her classmates say that her husband was a good-for-nothing and that their marriage was very unhappy. He didn't know why, but he felt a little unwilling. Yi Haochen was silent for a moment, then smiled and said, My dad wants me to move the company overseas. He said there are more opportunities in the emerging markets here. In the future, we won't be able to see each other so easily. Zhao Xueqing looked at him in shock. Yi Haochen saw her expression and felt a little proud in his heart. A sense of accomplishment gradually surged. However, after a short silence, Zhao Xueqing smiled and said, How can that be? Aren't you going back to China? If you go to Jinling for business, we can still see each other. I'll introduce my husband to you then. It'll be helpful for your career. Really? Haha. Yi Haochen's smile was a little stiff. What a polite tone. Also, your husband will help my career? What did that mean? Wuxia, there were only a few young people who could help me. Zhao Xueqing looked at the boarding gate. The boarding had already begun. She pulled Jiang Weiner away and said lightly, Senior Yi, you're so amazing. Everyone, do your best. Yes, it's time to board. Yi Haochen looked at her back and felt a sense of unwillingness and loneliness that could not be erased from his heart. She didn't even ask which country I was going to. This amazing. Can you not be so perfunctory? Moreover, from the beginning to the end, she had been looking in the southeast direction. Was she looking forward to meeting her husband? He wasn't too sure about this, but he was sure that what she was looking forward to had nothing to do with him. So frustrating. Chapter 322. He sat in the cabin and the plane took off. Yi Haochen's father, Yi Weihao, glanced at Zhao Xueqing and asked in a low voice, University classmate? Yup. Yi Haochen nodded. You should get your act together. As the mayor of Zhonghai, Yi Weihao exuded a powerful aura. He spoke slowly. You're already engaged to Miss Chow from Yanjing. This is a decision that benefits both families. She's a jealous woman, so you can't do anything stupid. He knew his son's personality better than anyone else. Although he wasn't as arrogant as the other rich kids, he was much more mature than his peers. However, when it came to relationships, he was a bit messy. Fortunately, Yi Haochen handled it appropriately. His emotional entanglement with the young ladies of Zhonghai didn't cause much of a stir. It could be said that they parted on good terms. However, Miss Chow from Yanjin was a jealous woman. She had a boyfriend in Beijing. Just because he danced with a girl on the dance floor, she drove her sports car and crashed into his car at Jiangguimen. She even beat up her boyfriend and the girl. The families behind the three young men were all famous in Yanjin. Therefore, they caused quite a stir. Soon, Ms. Chow's reputation as the lioness of Wuxia spread throughout the upper class of Wuxia. But what could they do? The Chow family was too powerful. Even Yi Weihao had to rely on them. I understand. A gloomy look flashed across Yi Haochen's eyes as he sighed gloomily. After the coronation ceremony, Jiang Tian took over the Guo family's assets and had a drink with some of the top tycoons in Singapore. Then he returned to the Hilton Hotel. Jiang Tian declined the Hilton sisters' offer of a car. Instead, he took a taxi and went to the airport to pick up Qing'er. Jiang Tian, have you been here for a long time? The moment Qing'er saw Jiang Tian, she had a pleasantly surprised look on her face. She quickly walked over to greet him, and then gave him a passionate hug. Not too long. Jiang Tian patted Qing'er's head and smiled tenderly. Good luck. Jiang Tian smiled. Was this her husband? I heard that he's a lunatic, but it seems like he's still normal. Yi Haochen, who was also leaving the airport, saw this scene and could not help but be stunned. A trace of inquiry flashed through his eyes. Seeing Qing'er looking at Jiang Tian with such tenderness, he couldn't help but feel a little jealous. This kind of gaze was not only filled with adoration and worship, but also a deep longing. It seemed that their relationship was really good. Isn't that Master Kong? Han Yener was taken aback by Chen Fan's words and her face paled. It's really him, but he seems to have become more handsome. Mai Shilong was also stunned. They would never forget the scene in Shinong School when Jiang Tian flew into the sky and burrowed into the ground, fighting against many martial artists and warlocks. In their eyes, Jiang Tian was like a godlike existence. Yener, let's go over and say hello. After all, they saved us back then and cured your grandfather's serious illness. Mai Shilong pondered for a moment and said. More than a year had passed, and Mai Shilong was more mature and steady than before. In fact, ever since he saw Jiang Tian's godly appearance, he understood that there was always someone better than him. He had completely put away his arrogance and became humble and cautious. This made him gain the approval of his parents. Now he was in charge of the family business and had achieved a lot. Han Yener was impressed by him, and the two of them got married. Yes. Han Yener and Mai Shilong walked over quickly hand in hand. Han Yener smiled and said, Master Kong, I didn't expect to see you here. Are you here for a vacation? Jiang Tian looked at the two of them in surprise, and then remembered their identities. He smiled and said, It seems that you two are married. Yes, Master Kong. I haven't seen you for more than a year. I've been missing you. Mai Shilong bowed respectfully. Congratulations. Jiang Tian smiled and said, Work hard and make a baby soon. Han Yener smiled shyly, and the nervousness in her heart eased a little. Mai Shilong saw that Jiang Tian was very approachable and had an idea. He smiled and said, Master Kong, which hotel do you want to stay at? I'll send you there. I'm staying at the Hilton Hotel. Don't bother. I can take a taxi. It's very convenient. Jiang Tian smiled and said, Hilton Hotel? What a coincidence. We're going the same way. Mai Shilong was pleasantly surprised and then begged, Master Kong, it's no trouble. Let's go together. Master Kong, we haven't had the chance to repay your kindness. Today we met in Singapore. It means that we are fated to meet. Please give us this chance. Han Yener also said with a sincere face. Although they didn't know about Jiang Tian's reputation in the martial arts world, they knew that Jiang Tian was a great person based on the fact that Jiang Tian had defeated all the experts in Shinong School. How could they miss the opportunity to curry favor with Jiang Tian? Forget it, Jiang Tian. Since you know each other, let's go together. Before Jiang Tian could say anything, Qing'er smiled and said, She was a kind person. Seeing Han Yener's anxious face and about to cry, she couldn't bear it. Okay then. Jiang Tian nodded. Mai Shilong quickly went to help Qing'er with the luggage and opened the car door for Jiang Tian. Han Yener picked up Jiang Wan'er and smiled. What a cute little girl. Next to them, Su Jie frowned and asked, Why are Mai Shilong and Yener so respectful to them? Maybe it's because of me. This Mai Shilong couple is quite smart. Yi Haochen didn't think much of it. On the way, Jiang Tian looked at the two with a smile. Mai Shilong, what brings you to Singapore? Oh, it's like this. Singapore has signed a free trade agreement with the government of Wuxia. They want to build a free trade zone in one of the coastal cities as a pilot project. Now both Zhonghai and Yangcheng are fighting for this pilot project. Mai Shilong sat down cautiously. He didn't even dare to sit down properly. Half of his body was hanging in the air. He closed his legs together and placed his hands on his knees. He looked like a subordinate reporting to his superior. Yener and I, as well as the other bosses, are all representatives of our companies. We are here to showcase the development of our companies. Other than that, some government officials will also be here to talk about the various good policies in Zhonghai. We hope that Singapore will establish a free trade zone in Zhonghai. Not bad. You are all representatives. Jiang Tian praised. You are too kind. Mai Shilong hurriedly smiled apologetically, respectfully and sincerely said, Grandmaster Jiang is an otherworldly expert, like an immortal. We're just making a little money. How could we be worthy of your attention? Mrs. Jiang is so beautiful. Han Yan'er looked at Zhao Xueqing carefully. She was a little mesmerized. In fact, when she met Zhao Xueqing at the Zhonghai airport, she didn't pay much attention to Zhao Xueqing even when Yi Haochen went over to greet her. But now, after knowing that she was Jiang Tian's wife, she took a closer look. The more she looked, the more she thought Zhao Xueqing was beautiful. She was proud of her beauty. Before she married Mai Shilong, she was pursued by many rich men. But compared to Zhao Xueqing, she suddenly felt inferior. Zhao Xueqing was not only picturesque, but her facial features were also exquisite. Her skin was white and tender. Most importantly, she had an otherworldly temperament, like a fairy who didn't belong to the mortal world. This temperament couldn't be created by clothes, jewelry, or makeup. It was innate. Pa. Jiang Tian snapped his fingers in front of her dazed eyes and smiled. Hey Han Yan, look at your eyes. You are almost drooling. Don't tell me you have been turned gay by my wife? Master Kong, you don't look like a master at all. Who is drooling? Han Yan'er looked away. It's not your fault. My wife is the most beautiful woman in the world. Women can't help but like her. Jiang Tian smiled. Han Yan'er's face turned red. She suddenly remembered that in Shenong town, she had deliberately approached Jiang Tian and said that she wanted to sleep with him at night in order to bully Mai Shilong. But Jiang Tian had pushed her to the ground. At that time, she had been curious as to why Jiang Tian had rejected her. Now she felt that it was only natural. Jiang Tian had such a beautiful wife. Why would he care about a common woman like her? What kind of master is he? He is just a hooligan. Qing'er glared at Jiang Tian, as if she felt that Jiang Tian was too brazen. Are you hungry? Let me get you something to eat. Jiang Tian waved his hand and a tonghulu appeared. You will get hungrier the more you eat. Qing'er picked up the tonghulu and took a small bite. Then she rolled her eyes at Jiang Tian. I have completed the mission in Singapore. I am now the Grand Preceptor. Jiang Tian said meaningfully. That's the right thing for them to do. What can they do? Pull out missiles and fighter jets? Haha, I am here. Don't be afraid. Big sister will protect you. Zhao Xueqing patted Jiang Tian's head and smiled. Jiang Tian was speechless. Your pure phoenix immortal body is amazing. I will also become the divine gunmetal body soon, okay? Although Mai Shilong and Han Yan'er did not understand their conversation, and even felt that it was a little childish, they smiled and looked at each other. They both had a wonderful feeling. How should they put it? They were really a match made in heaven. They arrived at the Hilton Hotel and went to the guest room. Jiang Wan'er fell asleep quickly. Zhao Xueqing lay on the bed and stretched. At the airport, you asked Xiao Mai and Yan'er to make a baby. When are we going to make one? There is no rush. Jiang Tian thought of a naughty child who called him Papa and felt very strange. He had been a cultivator for thousands of years. Even if dual cultivation sometimes helped him break through some barriers, it was very beneficial. His heart was in love with Qing'er, but he had never had a cultivation partner, let alone children. At this time he felt a little strange. Okay then, I am going downstairs to drink. Qing'er rolled her eyes at Jiang Tian. Yan'er just asked me to go downstairs to drink. I said I was preparing for pregnancy. Are you going? I won't go. I don't like this kind of occasion. Jiang Tian shook his head. Mai Shilong and Han Yan'er were just flattering and trying to build a relationship. Just thinking about it made him feel bored. Then I will go alone. I want to get drunk. Jiang Tian shook his head helplessly, but he did not stop her. Qing'er's life had always been very restrained, and she always bore an invisible pressure. Now it was time for her to relax. Jiang Tian did not expect that Qing'er's trip would cause such a big trouble. Chapter 323. Downstairs in the bar of the hotel. A group of tycoons from Zhonghai were drinking and eating chicken satay with coconut rice to fill their stomachs. They weren't used to the free food provided on the plane, so they decided to try some local delicacies for supper. Without a doubt, Yi Haochen was still the center of attention. However, this time, Mai Shilong and Han Yan were sitting in a booth far away from them, as if they wanted to leave the center of attention. Sujia rolled her eyes and sneered. Boss Yi, what's wrong with them? Why aren't they here for a toast? Go back to the free trade zone. Their companies are not allowed to enter. What are you talking about? That's my dad's business, not mine. If they want to drink, then let them drink. Yi Haochen smiled generously. Then Yang Wenluan walked in. Yi Haochen greeted him and said, Yang Wenluan, you're here. Young Master Yi. Yang Wenluan bowed respectfully. He had dark circles under his eyes and looked tired as if he hadn't slept well recently. Yi Haochen gestured for him to sit down and poured him a glass of beer. Yang Wenluan quickly took it with both hands. Thank you, young Master Yi. What can I do for you? He didn't dare to offend Yi Haochen. The Crown Prince of Zhonghai was a spiritual leader among the children of the rich and powerful. He was even one of the top figures in China. His recent engagement with Chao Jingyi from the Chao family in Yanjin was a big deal. Yi Haochen sipped his beer elegantly and smiled. Xiaoyang, how's the deal with the Guo family? Deal? It's over. Yang Wenluan took a sip of beer and shook his head in disappointment. Every time he thought about how Jiang Tianheng slaughtered the Guo clan, he felt as if he had just had a nightmare. His mind trembled and he trembled. Even now, he still hadn't regained his senses. His heart was in a mess. At the auction house, he had insulted Jiang Tian. Moreover, he had obeyed Guo Changxing's orders and coerced Li Xingyue to set up a trap to harm Jiang Tian. Even though Jiang Tian didn't punish him, how could he forget? He was dead meat. Oh, it's yellow. Yi Haochen was taken aback for a moment before he comforted her with a smile. That's not surprising. The Guo family's shipping company is well known all over the world. Of course, they have high standards for quality. Keep up the good work. There's no chance. Yang Wenluan picked up the wine glass. His hands were trembling violently, and his teeth kept colliding with the wine glass, producing a burst of explosive sounds like a machine gun. Why should he continue to work hard? Motherfucker, the Guo clan had been flattened. There weren't many survivors left. They had all become Jiang Tians. Don't be so dejected. Yi Haochen comforted her. Guo Changxing from the Guo family came to Zhonghai before. I've received him before. I can still talk to him a little. I'll help you ask for mercy and see if there's still a chance. There was a hint of bragging in his tone. Guo Changxing, this is killing me. What a scam. Yang Wenluan gritted his teeth and said in a daze. He was dizzy. Jiang Tian had scared him so much that he hadn't slept for 3 consecutive days. He couldn't hold on any longer. But he was still very angry. If it weren't for you, Guo Changxing, would I have offended Jiang Tian? What a scam. Be careful. This is the Guo family's territory. If they hear what you said, even I can't protect you. Yi Haochen's face suddenly turned pale. He was so scared that his whole body trembled. He glared at him fiercely. Yang Wenluan didn't say anything. He finished a glass of beer and gradually calmed down. I called you over because I want to ask you about someone. Yi Haochen suddenly said. Oh, go ahead. You were studying at the Jinling Pharmaceutical University's Renda College, right? Do you know someone called Jiang Tian? Ga. Jiang Tian. Okay, you go first. I'll talk to you later. Yang Wenluan was so scared that he almost fainted. He trembled all over and said in a trembling voice, Jiang Tian is a demon. He's so scary, so cruel, so violent. I knew it. Yi Haochen suddenly snorted and his murderous intent rose. He really wasn't a good person. Just now, Yi Haochen had asked Sujia to ask a few classmates who were close to Zhao Xueqing. They all said that Zhao Xueqing's marriage was very unhappy. It was said that she married a good-for-nothing who often beat and scolded Zhao Xueqing. In an instant, Yi Haochen's desire to protect Zhao Xueqing rose. He wanted to save this little junior, who was in deep trouble. Of course, it was more because of his unwillingness to give up. If he gave her a happy life, she would probably. It seems that Qing'er is not living a happy life. Su Jie also looked sympathetic. She pointed at the booth where my Shilong and Han Yener were and said, Xueqing just came down and has been drinking. She never drank before. She must be drowning her sorrows in alcohol. Yang Wenluan quickly left. Yi Haochen sighed sadly, got up, and walked slowly to Qing'er. Mr. Yi, you're here. Have a seat. My Shilong stood up and gave his seat to Yi Haochen. Senior, it's too lively over there. I didn't notice that you were here. Qing'er also greeted him politely. She had drunk a few glasses of wine, and her eyes were hazy. Her pretty face was flushed as if she had put on rouge, which made her look even more charming. Seeing Yi Haochen walk to Qing'er's table, a tall, muscular young man with a buzz cut asked, Mr. Yi, what are you doing over there? I haven't had enough wine yet. His name was Su Yuhang, and he sat there like a small mountain. His fists had long been worn flat and covered in calluses, exuding a sharp and terrifying aura. He was the chief instructor of the Zhonghai Armed Police Force, and his father was also a high-ranking official in the Zhonghai garrison. This time, he wasn't accompanying Yi Haochen on a sightseeing tour, but was the person in charge of security for many high-ranking officials and entrepreneurs. He had brought 7 or 8 young brothers with him, all of whom were powerful and nimble. He ran into an old flame, and wants to rekindle their old flame. Su Jie took a sip of red wine and smiled. TSK, that girl looks pretty good. Mr. Ye's taste is really top-notch. Su Yuhang grinned. Su Jie, can you introduce me to someone of a higher class? She's not some superstar or socialite. She's just a child from a poor family. How can she not kneel down and lick Mr. Ye's boots? She's not challenging at all. An elegant young man wearing gold-rimmed glasses smiled disdainfully and shook his head lightly. His name was Wang Quan, and he was a partner in one of the top law firms in Zhonghai. His family was in the Justice Bureau, and he specialized in legal matters regarding IPOs. He was also one of the most influential young masters in Zhonghai. Eating too much meat is too greasy. You should change your diet. Mr. Yi likes to eat light food recently. Su Jie smiled. She didn't feel guilty towards Zhao Xueqing. Instead, she felt that she had done something good for Zhao Xueqing and helped her form a good relationship. Zhao Xueqing was obviously pretending. She married a useless husband and lived an abyss of suffering. Now that Yi Haochen was willing to provide for her, she was like a savior. After Yi Haochen sat down and saw Qing'er's charming appearance, he couldn't help but take out a heart-shaped red velvet box from his pocket. In the middle of the box was a dazzling diamond necklace. He said, Qing'er, your birthday is coming soon. This is for you. Senior, I can't accept such an expensive gift. The smile on Qing'er's face gradually disappeared, and she felt very uncomfortable. Qing'er, do you know? After so many years, I've always been worried that you're not living well. Yi Haochen's eyes were a little wet. He said in a trembling voice, some things once missed can never be found again. But some feelings in my heart will never change. Accept it, Qing'er. On the side, my Shilong and Han Yener were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe it. What the hell? What's going on? Is Yi Haochen crazy? How dare he steal Master Kang's woman? I'm living well. My husband is also very good to me. Zhao Xueqing pushed the diamond necklace back. She said calmly but firmly, I know that you've always treated me like a sister. I'll remember this in my heart, and I'm very grateful. Yi Haochen was slightly stunned. Zhao Xueqing's family background was very ordinary. This necklace was worth 3 to 4 million. How could it not move her? Perhaps Zhao Xueqing was really afraid of being bullied by her husband. Her personality was weak after all. Perhaps he should add fuel to the fire. He put a bunch of keys on the table and said affectionately, My feelings for you are not as simple as brother and sister. This is the key to a villa in Singapore. I bought it for 100 million and just spent more than 10 million to renovate it. Qing'er, if you're willing to be my confidant, this villa is yours. Qing'er could no longer maintain her composure. She sneered and said, Mr. Yi, do you think I'm one of those female celebrities? I think, Mr. Yi, you probably don't know my and my husband's net worth. To put it bluntly, there's no rich person in this world who's worthy of Zhao Xueqing's company. Not to mention the tens of billions of assets in Jiang Tian's hands now. Even the Zhao family had 2 to 3 billion in their hands. It was just a villa worth 100 million. Jiang Tian then made a few high-quality instruments and bought it in a day or two. How could it be worthy of Zhao Xueqing's attention? At that moment, my Shilong advised, "Young Master Yi, forget it. Some words and feelings should be hidden in your heart. Otherwise, you'll attract unexpected trouble." He had good intentions, but those words were particularly unpleasant to Yi Haochen. He frowned in disgust and said disdainfully, "What? What can that useless husband of hers do to me? If he dares to come over, I'll slap him away." "Young Master Yi, let's talk. Listen to me." Han Yener reached out and pulled Yi Haochen's arm. Yi Haochen shook his arm violently, causing Han Yener to stagger. He said impatiently, "You two go away. Can't you see that I'm catching up with my old classmate? Don't you understand? If you talk nonsense again, I'll make sure you can't survive in Zhonghai." My Shilong hurriedly helped Han Yen. And was a little annoyed. Yi Haochen was a tyrant in Zhonghai. On the surface, he looked gentle and refined, but in his bones, he was extremely arrogant and overbearing. In fact, my Shilong was a little unhappy with him. However, the other party had a strong background, and there was nothing he could do. At that moment, seeing that the other party didn't know what was good for him and even threatened him, he couldn't be bothered anymore. He looked at Yi Haochen with sympathy and said, "Young Master Yi, we've said all the good things. If you want to die, then we won't stop you." He pulled Han Yener aside and called Jiang Tian. "You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."